All right, and we're live. So give a few seconds for maybe some people to come in. So they changed the setup, the layout of StreamYard a little bit. And ever since then, I have trouble share screening. The last live stream that I did, the live stream was good, but the problem is that there was an actual PowerPoint presentation that was going along the whole time that I was doing my monologues. So, I mean, I took the effort to make the damn PowerPoint presentation and basically no one saw it. So after maybe 2-3 days, I tried to make a video, not a live stream, but just a video going through a quick recap, actually showing the damn slides of the PowerPoint. So I did that. I was in a hurry, popped that out, published it, off I went. Usually I try and go see the video. First of all, I try and look at the video before I freaking publish it. But that doesn't always happen if I'm really, impatient. I want to do this, publish it. I'm in a hurry kind of thing. So anyways, just give me a second. Hey, Darla. Lama is the first to come. Yeah, sorry. So I was talking about what happened the last live stream. I thought that I was showing the friggin' presentation. I was upset. That didn't happen. So I tried to do another video, not a live stream. Published that in a hurry. Came back hours, maybe a few hours later to check. Realized that the freaking screen on the PowerPoint again was not working. And that was tried a third time. And it freaking didn't work. So either I'm an idiot and I don't know how the new layout works, or maybe there's a glitch. So I definitely want to damn it, I should get my phone and have it near me so that if the screen is freezing, I know that if my brother's watching or something, please call me, let me know that this is an issue, because this can't happen again. I freaking lost my phone, so I'm just going to play something very quickly and go find the phone, and that way we can test if my screen share is actually working. Let me just grab a YouTube video. So don't forget that my older YouTube videos are all ketogenic diet, fasting, carnivore diet, such a thing, these related things, prolonged fasting, intermittent fasting. And eventually I just changed it to my name, and I wanted to do a more wide variety of topics. But what I do want to do, since I'm actually getting quite busy, I'll stick to what I know, which is the ketogenic diet. So I want to make every Monday consistently, maybe 6-7 o'clock, a keto live stream. I'd like to limit it to about an hour and a half if possible, and have this regularly every week. People also, maybe we can have just pure, depends how big the community grows, right? So if there's not a lot of people hanging around, then I might have less people, on the panel. But if as we get more people that are like either starting keto, have done keto, carnivore, have, done prolonged, all of this kind of style of eating, low carb and things like that. If you guys are regularly here at the live streams, then, I'll post a link to join the live stream eventually. We can do that more often. So for now, I'm just gonna, like I had said, I'm gonna start the video. I'm gonna run, find my phone, and we'll jump right into it. Jessica, thank you for your efforts. Tech can be so yes, tech is definitely frustrating. Hey Darla, do you do keto and fasting? It works. Yes, Jessica, carnivore and fasting. Very good. All right, so my first attempt at freaking share screening with this new thing. Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. I'm just gonna have to figure it out this live stream. I'm really sorry because this makes dead air time. I was really comfortable with the freaking configuration before, and I could like waste a lot less time. But I guess that's not going to be the case for a little bit. All right, I'm gonna give it a go. I hope this doesn't create echo. So anyways, I hope that you can see this. Please let me know if you can actually see this YouTube screen here where I'm scrolling down my videos. I'm just scrolling down to the older ones. Put it down a little bit more, Josiah. And please write in the chat if any of the background noise is causing issues, and I'm going to go upstairs. When my wife gets back from where she had to go, she's going to be here with my granddaughter. So I'm going to have to go upstairs the minute that they arrive. Usually I work days, so when I get home at 5, between 7:30 or 5 to 8, like she grabs, my pinky and she's in charge. I do whatever she wants to do, playing, watching TV, whatever, just carrying around and just being like a slave wherever she points. I just go. So if I'm down here and she arrives, it'll be impossible to do this stream. All right, so this is the one that we'll go through, like the ketogenic diet, really the basics. You know what I mean? Pure basics. It'll go through and has like cool visuals, which is great. So it'll go through kind of the grocery list, main idea about this. Where can I see this is like 4 years ago. I mean, only 189 views, which shows how small my channel is and was even more. All right. What exactly the ketogenic diet is. The current recommendation is that we eat 50% of our macronutrients as carbohydrates, 30% as protein, and 20% as fat. So you see that the fat intake is very low in the recommendations. These recommendations are based on studies that were done in 1950s, trying to link higher fat intake with cardiovascular disease. The biggest example of a research study that influenced these recommendations was Ansel Keys. He did a 7-country study. He had data on 22 countries, and he wanted to link countries that were increasing, that had higher fat diets, was there higher rates of cardiovascular disease. There was only out of the 22, 7 that fit. So he excluded all the other ones and kept those 7, which gave the impression that there was a correlation. As fat was going up in the 7 countries, there's higher cardiovascular disease. It was a flawed study, and it's actually, the correlation was as people were increasing cigarette smoking consumption in the 50s, cardiovascular disease was increasing. So there's a lot of factors. You can even see also a correlation in the study
the more a country was industrialized, the more the cardiovascular diseases were increasing. Yet, this is why the recommendations, and this is what the American Heart Foundation bases their whole foundation on, is to villainize fats. Even though the present research that is coming out is indicating that cholesterol isn't causing the cardiovascular disease like we thought it was.
Okay, good. Looks like it's working. So wonderful. So please, this is one of the best videos overall to get like from an A to Z. Good overview, basics, the most important essentials. It has it's well edited. So there's pictures, as I'm saying, food groups and stuff like that. There's a lot of visuals that are popped up. So I was putting a lot of effort into these earlier videos. I was using, all of this is done on my phone, and this is with the app Kind Master, which I actually still have. Once in a while I do not the live streams, but definitely when you actually see a lot of the videos, especially if it's the ones that I'm doing on break at work or something, or in between stuff when there's some spare time. That's done purely on my phone using Kind Master. Okay. I freaking hate this. Bruce sees all in the house. Sounds good and clear. No, maybe tomorrow. Bruce sees all. Will you eat tonight? No, maybe tomorrow. Or if I am okay, we'll do day 8. Wow. Yeah. So my brother has a very, very popular astronomy channel called Bruce Sees All. If I was quick, I would pop it up. But if I'm so slow with the share screen, I don't want to waste too much time. But it's Bruce Sees All. And Bruce started Bruce started to do prolonged fasting. He's spoken about it a little bit on his channel as well. There is one on his live stream, a recent one where I was on there at the start of the live stream before he went on to like more astronomy topics, where he's giving his experience of his weight loss journey. So he's doing prolonged fasts with some refeeding a day or two. I'd have to ask him and go into a little bit more detail what he's incorporating, like the amount. But I know he was saying he's focusing basically chicken, butter, eggs, things like that as the refeeding, which is pretty much a ketogenic diet. He's not really offering any. He's not offering any at all carbohydrates or anything like that. So he's well into ketosis, and then when he decides to do the refeeding, he's also eating ketogenically that will maintain his fat burning metabolism. He'll be in fat burning mode. And it's good because the eggs, butter, things like that. I'd go for fattier. I think he was doing lean chicken breast. It's very hard for us to get out of our mind that fat does not make you fat. And some people are starting to wake up that, carbohydrates is sometimes very tricky to manage, and people don't really understand what it is, and they're being told through very deceitful and corrupt guidelines to eat that. They're listening to the experts, so everybody's quite confused. But so I'm not sure if Bruce was going on a leaner chicken breast on purpose, like he thought, like no, I'm doing this, but I'm going low fat as well. I would watch out if you're planning, Bruce, to fast the crap out of yourself till you get like to exactly where you want, especially if you're coming from pretty much a highly processed, packaged food kind of thing. And so you're probably malnourished in respect that your vitamin stores and all of these fat soluble vitamins, a wide variety of vitamins are probably heavily depleted. That's not just for you, that's for a lot of people eating a standard American diet. So you're doing a lot of fasting. It's already melting away. My brother's 44 pounds lost in just a little over a month, which is shocking. And so add it, just, I would encourage you that when you do eat, don't stuff yourself, but don't like skimp, like, oh, I don't want, you're going to be like melting away. Feel free to replenish yourself. So when you do all this fasting, which if you're fasting tremendously and you might already be depleted in nutrients, that's not ideal. So I'm not concerned with you banging out like fast after fast for days on end. But I suggest that you strategically say, yeah, well, if I'm refeeding, I need to try and catch up on certain of these vitamins that I'm probably for sure deficient on, so that as you're losing the weight, you're also taking advantage of rebuilding. Now, don't forget, there is a tremendous amount of autophagy, a tremendous amount of healing in these fasted states. There's a lot of cleaning happening, right? But you eventually do want to optimize the amount of raw material that you're going to reintroduce. It's like renovating a house, right? You don't go and buy all the new windows and whatever you're going to put in, new flooring and stuff like that. You don't buy it and then start plastering it all in. You have to strip it, right? You got to get rid of the freaking windows. You got to strip the floor. You got to remove a lot of the stuff in order to rebuild something. So it's not about only introducing material if you're always eating like we're being encouraged to, and we're not really being able to clean house or strip, but the other opposite can be true. So I think that my only encouragement would be we could talk about those refeeding. How can we like get the most bang for our buck? And a lot of people, it's just ingrained in our brain. You seem to be convinced that carbs, the amount of carbohydrates have to be drastically reduced because you're trying to access fat. And if you keep on supplying one fuel, you're never going to access, the stored fuel. So that's pretty simple. But then after, and I did that in the past, you go for a high protein, like just basically lean protein, because you think like, oh, I figured that there's something up with these carbs. They're making me fat. But obviously fat makes you fat too. It's freaking fat. Like you're eating fat is going in your blood. Like it's already fat. I mean, carbs turn into fat, but you at least have carbs that you have to turn into fat. If you're introducing fat already, all bets are off. That it's going to be stored as fat, obviously. And that's kind of like that's where the default, setting of our brain goes into. But in fact, it's not. Okay, fat will not make you fat. There are people, and now this is, I would consider a biohack or something like that. There's one guy, his name is Butter Bob. He's on YouTube, and he fasted, but he did a fat fast basically. So all he ate, he fasted a lot, but when he would eat, all he would eat is butter. So he lost all of his weight doing a fat fast, basically. There's another guy that either he wrote a book or he's also on YouTube, and it says, "Bacon made my pants fall off." And I think if you put that into Google as well as YouTube, you're gonna see that these guys. Now, I'm not saying eating, especially bacon that's processed with nitrates and stuff like that is ideal. The point I'm trying to get across is that fat does not make you fat. Now, if you're eating carbohydrates and you eat too much, the carbs itself can make you fat. But as well, if you're eating carbohydrates and you're introducing a decent amount regularly, that's the fuel that you're going to be primarily running on. So you do not want to have a high carb meal or a mostly carb meal and a hefty portion, like a 50-50 of fat. if you are eating a high carb diet, then yes, you have to reduce the fat, and vice versa. It's one or the other. I find protein overall stays primarily the same. I find that protein intake is self-regulated. I have this idea of over consuming protein, everyone encouraging people to limit protein. I could never eat 100 grams, of protein every day, or 150, which is, what is it? 1 gram to, oh, okay. I thought I was, um, yeah, I think it's where 1.5 grams per body weight. Anyways, it ends up, let's say for a typical person, 150 grams of protein. A lot of people can really up their protein intake because they're bodybuilding, or they're taking supplements, whey protein or something like that. So yeah, like then you can like boost up easily because it's liquid. But to eat meat, chicken, pork, these have a great amount of satiety. I find that. If you're not trying to force feed meat, like exaggerate or something, like making an effort to do that, and you just eat until you're satisfied, I think that the protein usually figures itself out. That's at least my opinion. So that's the thing. If the protein is there, then the two macronutrients that will be kind of switched around are either carbs and fat, and that's why when they started to demonize fat and they reduced the fat, then they had to introduce the sugar, which was very convenient. They introduced sugars in the form of high fructose corn syrup, just white sugar, flour, subsidized grains and stuff like that. Just dirt cheap, stuff, instead of the highly prized and valued animal food, animal fat, what I mean. All right. So let's look at a few more comments here. Jessica says that my son lost 70 pounds since December, and Jessica lost 12 pounds. Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. Is this your first time being here, Jessica? It's the first time I meet you, so that's pretty awesome. Let me know how you found the channel, or I'm sorry if you like, what are you talking about? I'm your regular viewer. Let me know this is your first time. Bruce Cizal. We're definitely going to have my brother on one of the, maybe the next, let's just do I'll ask Bruce if he wants to do it the next Monday live stream, and he'll be another week into it. So that'll probably be close to a month and a half, or not even a month and a week or something. So Bruce will be able to update us. If you want, Bruce, no stress at all. Sound good and clear. All will you? Yeah. So Bruce is saying that he's not eating, maybe tomorrow, or if he can, if he's okay, he'll fast for day 8. Just the shout out. It's amazing. Thanks, bud. Yep. Yeah, we had a good stream, man. Yeah, we did. Thanks. Yeah. It's always good that I can show up on your stream. It always gives me a few subscribers too. It's a win-win. Bruce is a rock star. I've got to finish some chores and we'll rewatch in a bit. But I share to Twitter and leaving the live on for the algorithm for you, Jason. I'm glad you are doing this for us. Wow. Well, thanks a lot, man. Jimbo, thank you, man. Very nice. Bruce says that his blood is very clear and very red. Were your menstruations darker and cloudy before? I'm glad that your menstruations are now very clear and very red. You have to quit smoking. That might just be like pure nicotine just sheeping. I'm assuming you still smoke. I don't really see Bruce smoke cigarettes on his streams as much, eh? Did you quit? I am sorry if you don't smoke for starting a rumor. All right. Okay. So let's try and do this. I'm going to start the PowerPoint presentation. Before that, these are some books that I highly, highly suggest. These are the books that I was reading when I was learning and figuring this out and reading books and going on YouTube trying to figure stuff out. It was one of those, it was like the summer of keto. I'd like to get through the second part of the presentation while maybe reviewing very quickly the first part. I'd like to get into, if we're able, the history, looking at a somewhat of a timeline in relation to ketogenic diet as well as fasting. Because in a way, a lot that we know about the ketogenic diet, and in a way, the way that it, maybe the reason why people started trying it was understanding that in ketosis, you're using fat, and that's the fat is in your bloodstream, and there's ketones being produced, and all of these, all of these mechanisms are set up a certain way during a fast. And the ketogenic diet, you are also like fasting in ketosis, so that there are some similarities. I'd have to look into it, the cleansing, the autophagy mechanism directly because of a ketogenic diet. Never read that, don't know. It's a question that's maybe in my head here that I'll look up. All right, so first book. All right, the Ketogenic Bible. All right, Ketogenic Bible. I'm sure you can find this on Amazon. Give you time. It's by Jacob Wilson and Ryan Laurie, The Ketogenic Bible. First book. This book is amazing because after every chapter, you can do additional research and all. I'm just going to try and bring that close. See this? These are citations. Okay, so at least everything in this book, whether you agree or not, the citations are there. This ain't like citing like some like website. Like these are peer-reviewed publications. Here, principles of nutrition and dietary recommendations for patients with diabetes mellitus. Like some pretty complex stuff, like reduced adipose tissue lipoprotein lipase responses, postprandial lipemia, and low and high density lipoprotein 2 subspecies levels in older athletes with silent myopia. Okay, there's a lot of study. This is really a wonderful book. I really trust it because at least the citations are there. The next book that I found really helpful was by Nina Turchel. She's not a scientist, but she is a food journalist or a food investigator. Like when journalism literally was investigative. You can also find her on YouTube. I'm sure there's as well easily information on Google. But specifically, I know that there are some talks, there's plenty of videos, interviews with this specific lady that did a great book that was a New York Times bestseller. It says The Big Fat Surprise, that's what it's called. Why Butter, Meat, and Cheese Belong in a Healthy Diet. Put this one aside. Anything with Jason Fung. This one is the obesity code. There's one, I think, that might be the diabetes code. Jason Fung as well made the Complete Guide to Fasting, which is an amazing book, co-authored with Jimmy Moore. Jason Fung is a nephrologist that works in Ontario, Canada, and he also developed a fasting clinic to reverse type 2 diabetes. When you're a nephrologist, what your biggest clientele, your bread and butter, is diabetics, because diabetics eventually, as that disease is not managed, and hence progresses, this will very often affect, among other horrible effects of this disease when it's not put into remission, is your kidneys die. So you end up having renal failure to certain degrees, to eventually being on chronic dialysis. So you can imagine how stimulating it must be to see all of these people that are showing up with diabetes, all because of lifetime, like the way we are eating in the West. There's obesity, among other things, the diabetes. They start having kidney issues. The nephrologist, he sees them. He can't tell them to go off insulin. Those are not recommendations. And basically, he just like, well, I'm not really helping anyone. I'm just like following their degeneration. And then when it's ready, I put them on dialysis. So he still works. And what he does is he pushes for a lot of, he's more intermittent fasting, but he's an advocate for low carb as well. It's forwarded by Tim Noakes, another proponent of low carb, high fat. I think it's called Low Carb Down Under, maybe. He's a scientist in nutrition, big advocate for fasting as well as a ketogenic diet. This is the next book. That's pretty much it. And this is really good if you're into veganism, vegetarian, the vegetarian myth. This lady was, it says vegetarian, but it's pretty much like much more about veganism, but it's been a while. Maybe, yeah, it talks about various like political vegans, political vegetarians, nutritional vegetarians. Let's start here. It says moral vegetarians, political vegetarian. So this is actually really good as well. Lear Keith as well has plenty of stuff on YouTube for free. So these are all Jason Fung, Lear Keith, Nina Turchel. Wonderful, interesting videos on YouTube that I watched, and I that really helped get me to where I am in understanding initially. Very good from experience. Those are some of my recommendations. All right. So the first one was a success. Let's try our luck with the PowerPoint presentation that has screwed up for me 3 times in a row. But this time, I'm a smart guy. I have my phone on, so I know that it's working this time. I just want to flip through a couple of slides, and I want to make sure that I'm seeing it change, because that's what actually happened the last time I was talking. And see, right now I'm switching the freaking, you guys do not see me switching PowerPoint slides, right? Yeah. So you see, it's not working again. All right. Yeah. Thank you. So let me try it again. I'm gonna have to figure this crap out. Like, is this a freaking glitch or something? Well, at least I'm smart now and not wasting like my whole freaking time. Stop screen. Okay. No. Yeah, I know. We don't see anything. All right, let's try it again. Share tab, Windows, share audio. I'm gonna try it this way. It's at least something different. I'm trying to play from beginning. It'll pop up. Okay, now I made it bigger, and now I'm gonna start going through the slides. Yep, it's working. Good. All right. Good. Let's get started, guys. So this is, again, the PowerPoint presentation on nutritional ketosis. There's going to be a lot of repetition. It's a lot of information. And you're going to need things like, oh, it sounds clear maybe while we're explaining it, and then you're forgetting, you're like, what? Okay, carbohydrates. What is this? What is insulin again? What did he say about glycogen? Was it something about, and like you're just going to forget a lot of stuff. So I think that repeating somewhat. I mean, that's what I do at least at work with the students, and it seems to. I mean, they do get a glazed over look, which brings me pleasure. But I repeat myself, and they do well. And if they don't do well, I never blame it on my teaching skills. It's always their fault, obviously. All right, so everyone has a doctor in him. We just have to help him in his work. The natural healing force within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. To eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness. Yeah. So, like we said, all of our body, all of our physiology always has two opposing systems that work in tandem to achieve balance and equilibrium. So there's always going to be, and that's why things can get really out of whack when one system, one aspect, one thing, is a critical illness, and then everything destabilizes itself. But we have, for every hormone that we have a counter hormone. We have within our nervous system, we have the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system. We have the rest, digest, parasympathetic nervous system. We have opposing hormones, like I said. There's always, like even right down to the pH of our blood. That is in relation to the respiratory metabolism as well as the metabolic metabolism. And those two actually work together to maintain an appropriate pH. If for some reason you are getting very ill, that will tend metabolically in your body to create a very acidic environment, and that brings your pH down, and that makes you extremely sick. So what happens is if you hyperventilate CO2, that makes you alkalotic, pushes you the opposite of acidic to basic. And that's how it works. So somebody who becomes sick will and they get a metabolic acidosis, will start panting and breathing faster, so that the body's trying its best to maintain over. And somebody who chronically has a CO2 that's elevated, the opposite, the bicarb in the kidneys will adjust. So you always have two systems. That's what I'm trying to say. And we have a catabolic system and we have an anabolic system. When we are feeding, we are in a anabolic building state. This is where we are introducing nutrients into our body. And then you have the catabolic state. This is when we are not eating. This is when we are in a fasted state. And because we're not eating, then we're starting to rely on the stored nutrients, calories, fat, and stuff like that that's in our body. So we have been convinced, because it's really convenient that they tell us that we should eat, never skip breakfast. Even if you're not hungry, you got to eat breakfast for some reason, or it'll lower your metabolism. You have to eat your 3 meals, or they say it will lower your metabolism. They say that between the 3 meals, if you eat snacks, it will help your metabolism. And anytime you do anything but stuff your face, then that's horrible for your metabolism. It's not true. It's all false. Yes, calories to a certain extent do play in part with losing weight as well as putting on weight, but there's also the hormonal influence that certain macronutrients have that set up hormonally a profile in our body that either makes it very easy to access fat storage and maintain body weight, and that will make it very hard to lose weight, and that will encourage fat storage. So it's not very difficult. So if you are sick, your body wants to fight the illness. So it has to go to war. Okay. It is there to break down, okay, to destroy and conquer. So when you're battling an illness, your appetite actually naturally goes down. A lot of people, when they don't feel sick, they don't have an appetite. They don't want to eat. The body might even make you throw up if you eat, because it is smarter than us, and it knows that not time to eat. I'm literally telling you, making you not want to eat because I know better, because I need to fight this. And to constantly eat is to be introducing the nutrients and the building blocks, yet never giving your body the time to actually go and put it where it's supposed to be and work with it and assimilate it into the body. And this lack of catabolism, this lack of autophagy, is a large factor, in my opinion, on increasing cancer rates. Because though we may have carcinogenic substances all over our in modern times, we have carcinogenic things. I mean, it's obvious. We don't know half of it probably. But at least if you're fasting, you're giving the body this catabolic healing process that I believe will greatly reduce cancer. There's something that this guy wrote a textbook this big, that cancer is primarily a metabolic disorder, and it's that this metabolic disorder is primarily from consuming high amounts of carbohydrates. Seems like, and I have to look into this, but this is 4 years ago when I was looking into it. They were saying, like, our mitochondria within the cell, how, what transfers calories into energy and stuff like that. So our mitochondria can switch between using glucose and using fat and stuff like that. It's not a problem, but supposedly many, not all, don't want to generalize, but many cancer cells, their mitochondria can't, or it's extremely difficult for them to use fat as an energy. So when you're in ketosis, when you're metabolizing fat and you're restricting glucose, you're basically not giving cancer the fuel that it can thrive with, and it makes it more difficult. So by not giving it when you are eating carbohydrates, and on top of it, by maintaining ketosis and low carb by fasting, allows the autophagy. So I think that is not all truths are science. There's historical truths, there's cultural truths, there's time-tested truths. Um, Science is a tool, especially physical science is completely legit, but they're not let's say not all sciences are equal, and not all things that are called necessarily science are, in my opinion, science. Okay, so we've been told primarily that carbohydrates is, in a way, the preferred fuel. Maybe I'm getting into some semantics about this. There is a great purpose for glucose. Our body also produces glucose. Our blood sugar is very important. We can die if our blood sugar goes drastically low. So glucose is very important, but glucose is able to be created um, through much easier with protein through a process called gluconeogenesis. And I was talking about this to JD before about it. I was like, wanted to talk to him about something, and it was like, oh, but I thought fat can as well create ketones. You can get, gluconeogenesis, the production of glucose to maintain it if you're not eating it through the diet. They can use the glycerol backbone of a fatty acid, I believe. But primarily, what I'm trying to get the point across is that uh, the body needs glucose, but the body can produce glucose. And I'm going to run upstairs, guys. So I'm just going to stop for a second so I don't lose my train of thought. And my wife just pulled in. So I'm going to go upstairs and hide. Especially when it comes to nutrition, when something is considered essential in the diet, it means that it's essential because, well, it's required, but it's essential because our body can't produce it. It can't use other things, and through some pathways create what it needs. So technically, carbohydrates are non-essential. We can't make essential amino acids. We can't make essential certain essential fatty acids and stuff like that. So they're essential. So now, does that mean that we don't benefit from, like, that carbohydrates, because they're not essential, there's some kind of poison or a demon? No. I think we've primarily, except for certain cultures due to geographical possibly restraints, most of them ate, even in hunter and gatherer years, most of them ate omnivorous diet. Some people, like the Maasai, the Inuits, I mean, they had a little bit of plant material, but primarily very, carnivorous, we could say. And yeah, but when I even looking at Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, my favorite book by Weston A. Price, like I said, Maasai, Inuit, I think all the other ones had at least some amount or some kind of plant. And it's important to remember that when I get that book back from my friend, I will start doing a book review on that. But they didn't. All of these thriving cultures that had not adopted the flour, the seed oils, and all of these modern foods of modernity and stuff like that, they were thriving. They didn't have all of the what we call, like, modern diseases as well, but they also didn't have actually a wide variety of stuff. They didn't have, like, they weren't like, well, tribe, we're having pork today, and then we're gonna make a bean salad tomorrow. No, it didn't it didn't really happen that way. So they were very limited. Sometimes they had, like, maybe one source of food. In the Swiss Alps, it was primarily ruminant animals, the milk product, dairy products, and they did eat, probably they cycled the cows through, or the goats and lambs, whatever ruminant animals that they were using there. And I believe they had rye bread. So they made, I'm sure, kefir, they made, butter, like all sorts of dairy products and cheeses and stuff like that. And they supplemented that with bread. That's almost all they ate, and a little bit of meat on Sundays, but that's not because they knew some secret that meat caused colon cancer or something like that. It was probably because it was more difficult to come by. They were using the animals primarily for dairy, so you can't be just like eating them all and things like that. So the thing is that if within our blood, let's say 5 to 6 liters of blood, depending, man compared to woman and the size of your body, but within your blood, it's about 4 grams of glucose. I'll call it sugar too. I know, like, usually, like, we could refer to sugar as the white table sugar and stuff like that, but blood sugar, when I'm talking about sugar, it's because some people don't even understand what glucose, glucose and carbohydrates, it's like, to them, it's like, okay, what's that? So sometimes I'll just refer to it as, blood sugar. So our blood glucose level, our blood sugar, is about 5 millimoles per liter in Canadian units, but that equates to just under a teaspoon of blood in all of those liters of blood. A teaspoon of sugar for all of those liters of blood. And this is held in strict regulation. The body will always return, if possible, unless you have insulin resistance and diabetes. It's healthy, the way it's supposed to be when it's functioning well, is it's going to you're going to ingest carbohydrates, right? Now that 4 grams is going to be, well, if you had 100 grams and it's quick acting carb, you can flood 100 grams in there. Well, your body can't just like function for hours with 100 grams, because when your blood sugar builds up in your blood, you're unconscious, among other things, right? So just give me a second. Okay, anyways, the point is that the 100 grams, the body will distribute it, whether it's for the cells that actively can use that as energy, and the rest will be stored, goes to the liver. Things are stored as fat and stuff like that. Either way, your body will remove that 100 grams ASAP to return it to 4 grams. Okay, so is it the preferred fuel? What is preferred? Like, that's a little bit like, well, what do you mean by preferred fuel? One reason why it's going to use it right away is that it has to burn that off to get it back to 4 grams. All right, so that's one possible reason. Carbohydrates, okay, are available, okay, and you can get energy a lot quicker from carbohydrates, and we store glucose and in our muscle for quick energy and things like that. All right, so the point is that without carbohydrates, just like people that decide to do ketogenic for long periods of time, or people that really fast for extended periods of time, they're getting fat from their adipose tissue. Those are the calories, and they're maintaining a somewhat, maybe a little lower than 5, maybe 4.5 millimoles per liter during that fast, and that's because the body is converting more readily, protein or fat to a certain extent, the glycerol backbone of it. So that's the reason. If our body could not produce carbohydrates, could not produce glucose to fuel certain things need glucose, like about 20% of the brain, I believe, needs glucose. And the rest can be switched to ketones, which is an energy product derived from fat. So there is an alternate fuel source. So the alternate fuel source is fat and ketone bodies. I said it's more efficient. Me and JD can talk about that. JD can more efficient. Again, some semantics. Next time I have JD on, I'm going to have him explain it. Don't forget, JD studied kinesiology, so that gives him. That's why he went into training as well. A lot of people that do kinesiology will go into sports training and nutrition and things like that. Plus, he has biology, so I want to talk to him about that, and he can explain. Ketones are made when the body metabolizes or breaks down adipose tissue or nutritional fat. So I shouldn't have just said adipose. It's when it breaks down fat, whether it's fat that you just supplied in your meal or fat on the body. Beta hydroxybutyrate. This is the ketone that your body is primarily using. Acetoacetate can be converted into beta hydroxybutyrate, and acetone is more just a byproduct of acetoacetate being changed into beta hydroxybutyrate. Very important if you're on any medications, that should be taken into consideration before doing such a huge change. If you're on insulin, you can't do that without letting the doctor know, because you'll need drastic reductions in your insulin sliding scales, because it's a completely different way of dealing with insulin. So I want to say that multiple times. If you're on medications, talk to your pharmacist, talk to your doctor, and especially if you're on medication possibly for insulin resistance or like straight up insulin for diabetes, because insulin that creates a severe reduction in glucose can kill you. You can die. You will die. So don't do that. Anyways, these are when looking at ketones and blood ketones and blood glucose and stuff like that, these can be measured just like you do a skin prick with the glucometers. Same thing can be done with a ketone meter, where you measure your ketones. 0.04 millimoles per liter and below is what most people eating a normal carbohydrate diet will have. These 0.4 is these slight traces of ketones that will start appearing in a carb diet, usually towards the end of them sleeping. Slight amount of ketones, but then they're up and they got to eat that breakfast, right? Kellogg's cornflakes, yum yum. But during prolonged fasting, the glucose will be lower than when you're eating carbs, but nothing drastic. You won't really have symptoms or anything of hypoglycemia. And the fact is, actually, there's a study where they had very high, the study subjects had very high levels of ketones, and insulin was given to drop to clinically significant low levels of glucose that would be detrimental, and they had no symptoms, which shows that the ketones were able to supply the energy quite readily. That's deeply unethical to do that. I'll tell you, I have to read up again. It's just, I don't know if it was the Nazis that they did on prisoners or something. There was a lot of very good research done very unethically on prisoners or people with mental illness in asylums and stuff like that. There's also something called diabetic ketoacidosis. This ketone levels start building up because the body, the glucose is in the blood and unable to enter the cell because of diabetes, because of high insulin resistance. That's gotten to the point that the pancreas's signal, its ability to secrete insulin to say, open up, cell, take this glucose, has reached a point where without injecting insulin, your glucose that you're ingesting just builds up in your blood. So as far as your body's concerned, it thinks that it is dying. I have to add L, there's a typo, is dying and lacking energy, so it starts producing ketones, as well as other pathways to create ATP energy production, lactic acid production from the lactate pathway, diabetic and diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus, where there's this diuretic effect. You're peeing, which further is concentrating the acidity of your blood. So if you're gonna, and this is what ketones were first discovered with diabetic ketoacidosis. So it always had a negative connotation. And often, I remember when I started talking about the ketogenic diet, especially, I work in the hospital, especially among medical staff, for people unaware of ketogenic diets and fasting, a ketone is bad. It's dangerous. Those ketones, when somebody has ketones that are elevated in hospital, it's rare that they're eating a ketogenic diet or fasting. So restating here, ketosis is a state of having elevated ketone levels, usually above 0.5. When you first start and you're adapting to ketosis, this metabolic way of using energy, there'll be a higher buildup, sometimes right up to 3 even. And as your adaptation occurs, as you're producing these ketones, the body's using them a lot quicker or more efficient. And even for somebody that is doing ketogenic diets prolonged, my ketones were rarely above 0.4. It was like, as I was using it, the body was not allowing it to hang around into the blood. It was being used. So fat metabolism occurs when carbohydrates are restricted. The ketogenic diet came in large extent by studying fasting initially. Fasting, obviously, just like the ketogenic diet, you are not introducing glucose. You're not taking carbs. So there are some similar mimicking, or it sets up a very similar metabolic environment within your body to fasting. It's not exactly fasting. I have no idea. I know that autophagy, that healing mechanism, is activated during true fasting. Is there a certain amount that's activated through actually just nutritional ketosis itself? Another question that I'm just asking myself that I have no idea, so I'm not making any claims, but some curious questions that maybe I can look into. The way is that when you're fasting, you're not eating carbs, so you're using your fat on your body, and that fat is in your blood. Your body has ketones, so you're in ketosis. And when you're eating no carbs again, and you're a lot of there's protein, but there's a lot of fat going through, it's creating ketosis. So it's a fast mimicking diet. And it was from understanding ketosis and ketones, and they're not bad, they're not toxic and stuff like that, that they started to scratch their head and go, well, we know then that there's no carbs, but a certain amount of carbs are being maintained. But obviously fat they're losing weight, so we know fat is going in to the bloodstream. So they were slowly starting to pick up about ketosis when carbs are restricted. And then they started to see benefits, 5th century BC, benefits, especially in epilepsy, seizures, epilepsy, that fasting, they just knew fasting, among other many health benefits, but it was documented very early that fasting was a way of treating epilepsy. And in fact, it was medically used in the 20th century. And the minute that pharmaceuticals developed medication, it was largely abandoned. The fact that you could fuel your brain mostly on ketones, and it seemed to have an anti-seizure effect. So I like to say I advocate for a higher fat, low carb diet. that is not plant-based, that is actually animal-based. So when we say plant-based, it means that the large part of your plate is plants. Very small part might be certain animal products, right? Because it's not vegan, they call it plant-based, right? So what I advocate for is the majority of your plate actually having animal food. And then I think my brother was laughing. He kept on joking, saying, "Animal food? You talking about like kibbles and bits for dogs?" Um, Animal sourced nutrition derived from animals, such as pork, chicken, fish, things like that. So that's what I advocate. But for 80 years, I think now, it was a high carb, low fat diet that was pushed. And this was, we'll learn how we came up with this horrible idea of high carb, low fat and demonization of animal fat. So just to remember that fats are essential and proteins are essential, because there's essential fatty acids and essential amino acids, but carbohydrates technically you can survive without ingesting carbohydrates because of gluconeogenesis. Like I said, me and JD have discussed that, and I agree with him. Nothing wrong with carbs, and especially if you're an athlete, like there's nothing wrong with knowing how much carbs will fill up your muscles, because that has nothing to do with fat, even though it puts on weight. It's a good thing to have, fast energy fuel stored up, as long as you're not spilling over, right? But I don't think that it's necessary if you're sedentary, obese, metabolically sick, insulin resistance. I don't think that you need to be concentrating on getting benefits from glycogen storage in your muscle. I think that you should run dry on the glucose because you're going to lose weight that way. You will do that without being starving, and you will eat certain foods. You'll avoid other foods, and you'll eat until you're satisfied, and you'll eat only when you're hungry, kind of thing. So a ketogenic diet is one in which glucogenic substrates are low enough to switch body metabolism into fat burning, mode. And obviously these macros can be individualized. And what I mean by that is if you're an athlete, obviously you're going to want to always have that glycogen storage replaced as soon as possible. But for somebody who is losing weight and they're obese, I'm not really, I could care less. Like, they're too fat, they're not moving, they're still sitting, they're eating right, properly, and they're going to start losing weight, but they're not too active yet or doing anything. I could care less about them having capacity to the most efficient fight or flight, right now fuel. That's why I unapologetically will push, and I'm very comfortable, whether it's a carnivore or a keto. But I would not try and prove a point on a carnivore diet to not eat organ meats. I think that's stupid. The reason I say organ meats, liver, if you're eating, the cow fatty cuts of meat, grass fed, so they're it's not like full of omega-6 and stuff like that. Anyways, okay. I haven't even gotten to it. This is still the review. I'll just shut up and go quickly. So there's glycogen storage, right? This is stored glucose in the body, in the liver, as well as the muscle. When glucose is stored in our muscles, it's stored with water. Therefore, this is these huge fluctuations in weight. And this is the criticism, which is false, when they say that ketogenic diet is just really water weight. Yeah, it has an impressive reduction in weight, because you do initially, as you go through the glycogen and you run dry on the glucose and you start, burning fat and stuff like that, the glucose will be used up, and you'll have like a lot of weight loss, but that's not fat loss yet. And that can be frustrating. People don't understand that, because then they could be like, 2 weeks strict, and all of a sudden they'll like cheat once and they'll wake up, I put on 9 pounds, and they're freaking out. And it's like, no, it's you're just holding more water because that glucose actually didn't turn to fat. You're hardly ever using glucose. So that one glucose meal that you're going to eat is not going to go into fat. It's going to replenish. So don't freak out when you're weighing yourself every day and you all of a sudden you lost weight, then you plateau, you lose 1 pound, and you wake up with 7 more pounds. Like, calm down. You can weigh yourself every day, but look at the trend weekly, as well as measure your belly or whatever, your thighs and stuff like that, because your weight might not be changing, but the inches may. So yeah, what I was saying is like, no, there's no preferred fuel. Okay, each glucose as well as fat, they have both important aspects, and if either one was not present in the body, we would die. Okay, so fat, if we didn't have access to fat when carbohydrates weren't being eaten and we weren't able to produce glucose, we would die unless we had constantly a fuel source, and vice versa. So, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that the body has 2 forms of glucose. One that in our hunter and gatherer, we would gorge. I mean, any carb we could get our hands onto, like, stuff that in my face, because we were hunter and gatherers. Okay, we were not going to be obese. This was like a gift from God. Like, thank you. Like there'd be all of these fructose vegetables or fruits, primarily, let's say, fruit sources available seasonally in certain areas. Hunters and gatherers knew that if they ate a lot of that, they would put on weight. And they, so, and it's cool that a lot of, before going into the dry, the winter, the fall and the winter months, where these people would have difficulty in the winter, probably a lot harder to have that season of blooming and harvest, ripened. It's really a very cool, thing. It's like, nature's pretty smart. Here you go. We're going to give you a little bit of cushion as we go into the cold, dark, cold seasons. So insulin opens up the cell to receive energy, glucose from the blood. But because this is when we're anabolic, this is when we're giving the body all of these materials and nutrients and things like that to maintain and to build the body, right? So this is anabolic, and insulin is that hormone that recognizes when you're anabolic. It recognizes that you're introducing nutrients, and glucose specifically creates the biggest or the more pronounced surge of insulin compared to fat and protein, and that is beneficial. JD as well made a good point too, that because insulin is being misused and stuff like that, being hyper secreted and stuff like that, it can't hurt to have to not try to not. So yeah, carbohydrates. Lost my train of thought. Okay, so I was reading that insulin. Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, JD was saying, yeah, but I know, but if you introduce a little bit of glucose with that, it does have a more prominent insulin surge, which is not necessarily bad if used appropriately, and that will actually have you absorb more of the stuff that you're ingesting. And I think that there's some legitimacy to that. But again, that's something that I would start talking to people that I'm helping out after the weight loss. I really want that consistent ketosis as much as possible, so that that they are using this as a way of also healing their insulin resistance, and then they can decide, once they achieve their weight loss goal, maybe kept stable there if they want to reintroduce carbohydrates. But that again needs to be individualized. People should not be given like, how much you weigh, what's your age? Oh, you should be eating that much. It's like people need to freaking understand just the basics of food. It's not that hard to understand, but they need to understand that they can get away with a carb meal if they haven't had carbs for a while. That there's a lot of stuff that people just don't understand. Okay, so fat does not make you fat. I've gone through this in previous live streams too. All of these more recent studies that show that there is hardly sometimes even an association with fat, that it does not cause heart disease. Fat, these are new, good quality studies. Fat was never proven to cause anything wrong. This was called, there's an association, and that doesn't prove causation. But 80 years of hearing this, scientists understand link, correlation, association, causation, but the public says like, oh, there's a link between animal fat and heart disease. A link? Oh yeah. Well, what really are most people thinking? There's a link? I mean, if I eat animal fat, I get heart disease. So there's a link. So that link is because the animal fat causes, and that's not true. So again, it is, the corruption is, why don't I make a very biased and a very biased study, asking only the questions that I know will benefit me, not setting it up to ask any questions that might refute anything. And I just want to reinforce this and just keep on plastering medical journals with the same damn studies over and over, done completely wrong, when in fact, along with the starchy overdoses that we're getting, so the high carb diet creating insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and things like that, the overconsumption of especially refined carbohydrates, like sugars and stuff like that, are a problem, as well as fats, but not the animal fats, the seed oils, the canola, the rapeseed, the sunflower, okay, the soybean, all of them, except for olive oil and coconut oil in tropics, let's say. What I'm saying is like, they're not toxic seed oils that are extracted in an industrial process using solvents such as industrial hexane, that's an industrial solvent, to extract the oils. And this is the problem: too much carbohydrates, as well as these seed oils and other nutritional deficiencies and all the other chemical synthetic garbage they have. But especially between the 1950s, right up to the 1980 guidelines, strategic marketing started to demonize fat. 1950, we're going to have to go into maybe a more detail just on Ansel Keys. But this horrible person has probably his lies and deceptions have, I mean, think of how many people are following the recommendations, trying their best, and calorie restricting, trying to move more, and just eating all those carbs and restricting, no animal fat, just eating seed oils and using margarine. The low-fat labels started popping out in the 1980s, and everyone was fat phobic because of these lies and deceptions. So the low-fat labels started coming in, and what did they do? Well, they removed the fat, drastically reduced it. The small fats that they did have were the subsidized toxic seed oils, man-made seed oils. And so the fat was reduced, and the fat that was initiated was not lard, was not butter or anything. And then, because you can't just remove fat, you had to add sugar, and those sugars on top of it were dirt cheap. They were the same dirt cheap sugars that we still use high fructose corn syrups, flours, grains, rices, soy, all this kind of stuff. And it's funny because during the low fat era, as we started taking out the fats and pushing in the sugars, now not only heart disease was an issue, obesity rates started to rise. The cardiovascular disease just worsened, and then the whole diabetes started coming in. And then after the wasting of our elderly, and just all of our elderly demented with Alzheimer's, large part of that, in my opinion, is a reduction in the fats, because your brain is mostly made of fat. High glucose, because there's glycated beta amyloids, and to a large extent, Alzheimer's is insulin resistance in the brain, among other things, but just one aspect also. They call it the third diabetes. Decreased fat requires increasing carbs, and that was through subsidized stuff. In 92, just to show you, and this is very helpful, Bruce, if you're having any reservations about like when I'm refeeding, the carbs, the sugars, forget about it. But I'm going to stick to protein mostly. I know protein won't make me fat, but this fat not make me fat, I'm not sure about that. Trust me, okay? What you're doing is you're going to eat fat and protein. So in this carbohydrate restriction regulates the adaptive response to fasting. He first did was he infused fat into the bloodstream alone, okay? And he saw that it was just, that's it. It was used as fuel. There was no indicators of obesity when the fat was being infused alone into the bloodstream. There was no high glucose levels or high insulin levels that are the usual requirements for fat to occur. But when he infused that fat and suddenly added carbohydrates, fat was no longer used. Remember how glucose will be used because the grams go up and your body has to deal with that and bring it out of the bloodstream to bring it down to the 4 grams, that teaspoon of blood. So fat is no longer used. So now you understand that it's either high carb, low fat, or it's either low carb, higher fat. Because if you're doing high carb, high fat, that's junk food, you will die. Okay, so fat alone doesn't make you fat. But if that same fat is infused with glucose, the fat is no longer used as fuel. And in fact, the body is somewhat impaired in both fat and glucose utilization. So the conclusion that really, and trust me, because people do fat fast and lose just pretty much almost the same amount as other fasts to a certain extent. So the conclusion is that fat by itself doesn't make you fat. Instead, it's carbohydrates and fats combined that are bad. And I would go as far as to say that yes, to a certain extent, fat being more and more and more, yes, it's just too much, and it will be stored as fat. But the same can be said with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates as well. If you're spilling over, so carbohydrates being infused alone, if you're already all your storage of glycogen has already been filled up and your body isn't demanding that much energy, then a high amount of carbohydrate infusion as well would directly be transferred into fat. Don't forget during keto adaptation that most of us have been eating a high carb diet all of our lives. So our ability to produce energy has been primarily, to a large extent, we're using glucose. Now we're completely switching and saying, you know what? My body's going to use glucose for the bare minimum, that 20% of the brain. I'm going to let the body use it to maintain, a normal blood glucose level. To that gluconeogenesis, to a certain extent, will slowly. It's not that if you don't eat glucose, gluconeogenesis cannot start replenishing much more slowly. glycogen. I know there was one study that says that you definitely have less, like you never top out your glycogen stores, but there's also during the adaptive phase that there might be, what am I saying? Yeah, during the, damn it, slipped my mind. Crap. I'll remember it in just a minute. High carb, yeah, periods where your body adjusts to primarily using fat instead of carbs, right? So there is going to be a period where your body's not as efficient of solely relying on majority of fat. And this can lead to symptoms. You feel dizzy during this adaptive period. And this is the switch. Like it's a huge switch from doing high carb to low carb. And your body needs to adjust and calibrate itself, kind of thing, to becoming more efficient and accustomed to using fat metabolism, using fat as energy. So dizziness can occur. Salt can help. Don't go crazy with salt, but do not avoid salt like the plague, like they recommend us. And I'm not going to go into why. I've done that in past videos, and that can be something we can discuss another time. Charlie horses, cramps, or tiny twitches in your eyelid. Magnesium sulfate. This could be effects of lower magnesium. Never trust a keto fart. This can happen whether you switch any drastic change to the diet, but during the adaptive period, there's definitely some people actually have gotten constipation, and some people have gotten diarrhea, runny stools, headache, brain fog. This period is a period that is kind of cool because it lets you feel how vegans feel all the time. So that's brain fog, fatigue. Like I said, like you're used to getting like that glucose right away, boom, then carbon up 5 hours, like carbon. So yeah, your brain's not going to be like doing super well without the carbs being produced, and it takes time for the body to kind of switch into that fasting catabolic. Okay, let's start producing, let's start bringing the fat. It's not immediate. So that's why people that do like carb cycling, so they'll be like normal carb day, low carb day, no carb day. So it's like, yeah, the low carb, you might, be okay. But that low carb day, everyone's like lethargic, and you cycle, your training days when don't train when you're doing your no carb day, and you're all foggy and like forgetful and don't have energy and stuff like that. So I remember experiencing that when I used to like carb cycle and stuff like that. So you'll feel fatigue, the changes in the amount of fat and stuff like that. There could be nausea. Also during ketosis, so that whether it's more fasting, but to a certain extent, ketogenic diet. When you're fasted, because you're getting the energy from fat, but so that your body would not become fatigued and weak when you had no food. Like think of that, like, oh, we have no food. Oh, I'm so weak. I'm tired. I can't hardly get up. Well, you need to, because you have to go find food or you'll die. So without food, you're getting calories. You're going into, basically ketosis and stuff like that. But your sympathetic, your fight or flight system, your adrenaline system also ramps up, because it's so amazing. It's literally setting you up so you're like keenly focused, because ketones increase cognition. So mentally, you have a heightened cognition. You have no fluctuations in your energy stores, because it's fat, so it's less peaks and valleys, right? So anyways, all this to say is you're ready to go hunt. Think of it, rest and digest. That when you eat, most people, like, they just feel like chilling out and digesting, watching like a little bit of evening news or something like that, right? So I've never felt energized after eating a big carb meal. I feel like I'm exhausted. It's like a sleep aid. I'm telling you, especially me. Like the rare times that I'll have like I'll cheat and I'll have like pure junk food, ice cream or something, tons of ice cream, binging, and it's like I wake up and I'm like, what happened? It was like I took like benzodiazepines or something. Like the sugar goes up and like insulin spikes, and I'm just like unconscious. It's really good. I think it works better than like melatonin. So some people don't have any symptoms. Some people a day or two, a week or two, some up to a month. Obviously, not intense. What I had was dizziness when I went from sitting to standing. That's often salt. So I don't want people to get discouraged because they feel like crap and it could last 2 weeks and then they go, well, like my body's responding and telling me this is not a good thing, so I'm going to stop. I didn't feel good. It didn't work for me. People need to understand the adaptive phase, and I rather somebody, they have a lot of stuff to learn, to understand. They're coming here like, just what is this, and lost. I will say, look, you can take a multivitamin, you can take magnesium sulfate, and you can put some salt on your food, and put some salt on your food, especially if you're a little bit more, if you're feeling dizzy. That's kind of the trick. A lot of the low magnesium, lower salt, and all this stuff, it has to do with a shift in how the kidneys retain and excrete electrolytes, sodium, more specifically. You're going through your glycogen. Remember, there's a lot of water when you're stored up glucose in your muscles and liver. So that's going in and being used, and the water's entering the bloodstream because the glycogen's going one way, the water's there, it's going through the kidneys, peeing out. So you have a diuretic effect. And this is a lot of switching and changing, a lot of weight loss, a lot of peeing, a lot of removing that water weight, and a lot of electrolytes go along with it. So you can have symptoms, and I don't want people that are starting this to experience symptoms and get discouraged and say, no, it wasn't for me. Here is a beginner's keto food list. I just went on here and I was looking, like, okay, just let me find something to kind of give you guys an idea of food. Again, please go at the start of this live stream. You saw the video that I was talking about, my oldest video 4 years ago, the ketogenic, let's talk ketogenic diet or something. Go watch that one. It's going to give a good refresher, a good recap, and it has, pictures of the food I'm talking about. But let's just go through this, okay? On a ketogenic diet, when you can purchase pretty much all meats and fishes, right? So bacon, chicken, moose, crab, lamb, alligator, lobster, shrimp, a dead raccoon on the side of the road, roadkill, no problem. Everything's open. If it's an animal, you can eat it, right? Salmon, trout, elk, boar, deer, buffalo. Sound like Bubba Gump shrimp with garlic, shrimp and barber. I want to go home first. Anyways, hot dogs. Look, you can have technically you can eat kind of some processed meats and stuff like that. It's not going to pop you out. Won't affect your diet, but yeah, like eat a clean ketogenic diet. I have nothing against bacon, especially here. You can buy bacon without nitrates and stuff like that. No problem with that at all. Is it good to have pepperoni and things like that? I'm not that convinced that it's going to make you die. Okay. Should that be all of it? Should you be stopping at McDonald's and Harvey's and throwing the bun and eating, that stuff and asking for 3 patties and paying for? Probably not, right? And don't cook any of this food in seed oils. You cook it in lard, cook it in tallow, cook it in ghee. We'll get to those fats, butter, whatever. I like rendered duck fat. That's pretty much the one. I do have lard and rendered duck fat, and I use that. The butter, like it gets brown pretty quick. So animal food, that's what I mean. I don't mean kibbles and bits or dog chowders. Drinking water, coffee, tea, bone broth, bubbly water. Stick to water, coffee. You can don't put sugar, right? No sugar in the coffee, but you can put some cream in the coffee if that's what you like. I've been guilty of putting artificial sweeteners. Not good, guys. It's not good. So just don't go from a sweet tooth replacing it with aspartame and sucralose and stuff like that. I mean, stevia leaf might be in my head, just feels like it might sound less toxic, because I know Michelle's sister was growing stevia leaves, and she was putting leaves directly in, and like the trichomes, the white, crystally stuff, naturally sweetens. So if you have to, I guess stevia would be the lesser evil, but I can't guarantee. I haven't looked into that too much. You can have small amounts of seeds and nuts, and that shouldn't be, in my opinion, a daily thing, because a lot of nuts are attached with fat. So most of the nuts will have carbohydrates and fat and protein. It's like a full mix. So that's fine. Okay, great. But you know how peanuts is like, I mean, no, you're consuming a lot of carbs. Yeah, there's fiber, but like there's carbs there if you're stuffing it in like that, and there's fat there, and you probably ate fat during the day. Not idea. Not idea. Not idea. Not ideal. But you can have a little bit once in a while. The vegetables, keep it to starchy stuff. Don't green beans, onions, Brussels sprouts, all of the collards and stuff like that, cabbage, blah blah blah. All of these, okay. Non-starchy vegetables. That's basically what I say. And fruits, watch out. There are some fruits that have a lot more sugar than others, and we do have to remember that we can't, when somebody will come and tell you like, well, we've been always eating fruits, like, yeah, okay, but these fruits are man-made, they're GMO'd, they are amped up, they're seedless, they're made to be bigger, to be sweeter. So yeah, gathering, I have wild. I have currants. I have some wild blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. And these are they're small, man. You're like, and they arrive in nature like just briefly, like, oh, they're we're gone. So even geographically, saying, look, I just want to. We weren't sick when we back then, and what we're eating in Canada before we had like freaking gas powered cars and planes and able to get avocados all year around. We were eating especially in Quebec, close to the great up north here. We obviously we have apples. We have a lot of fruits that we can grow here in Canada in the summer, and vegetables, and yeah, we can grow a lot of that, and that should be eaten seasonally when it's available. People should be eating it at that point. Canning actually is not that good. That's one of the modern foods that Weston A. Price was talking, foods of modernity. Primarily, it was floury, like sugary substances, seed oils, white floury stuff, and canned vegetables and stuff like that, canned goods. So I am quite comfortable being a lot more ketogenic somewhat in the winter months, and then after in the summer months enjoying more of the local things. And we have a garden, we grow stuff, and I don't think that that's unreasonable. I think that is sustainable. I think that is very close to a human appropriate diet. Obviously, we can succeed in a lot of different ways, but this is how I like There's other reasons why I do it beyond just for weight loss, for health reasons. I have some health issues, talking about the epilepsy and stuff. I take anticonvulsants. So the more we talk about fasting and ketosis for treatment of epilepsy, some people get full remission from epilepsy by inducing nutritional ketosis, and other people have an improvement. And this goes for some mood disorders, it goes for depression, it goes for a lot of cognitive diseases. In fact, deep sea diving Marines, when they're on missions, deep sea diving with breathing the oxygen is 100%, they can have seizures underwater. I mean, obviously, you start seizing as a Marine underwater, you're going to die. So they induce ketosis before missions. This is where exogenous ketones, like literally ketone powder that you ingest and it's ketones, MCT, medium chain triglycerides, things like that, they can produce ketones. So these divers will use exogenous. So endogenous means things that are inside your body, that are like hormones that are produced, let's say, for example. And so that's endogenous. Exogenous, exo is outside. So the ketones, exogenous ketones, are saying that, hey, but see, the thing is, they push that online. They'll have that at supplement stores too. They're pushing. It's like, why are you ingesting ketones? Like, just if you're trying to do that, just stop eating carbs. You don't need to buy supplements. What's the purpose for that? Why are you chugging ketones? It's like, I don't agree with that. But MCT oil and exogenous ketones are beneficial for epilepsy, because the ketone level, those millimoles per liter in the blood, becomes the treatment. So they will try, let's say, okay, let's keep the person at 2 millimoles per liter. If they're just nutritionally eating that, once they get fat adapted, they're never going to attain those levels. So they are prescribed, in a way, exogenous. So they're drinking ketones. It is extremely more rigid, and they are eating they're taking MCT oils, ketones, very restrictive, and this is, and technically fasting can really boost ketones. So this is the ketone level. So at that point, I do agree with it that there's a purpose, but not for supplements. Don't get into these stupid things, buying keto things online. Don't buy anything that says keto on it. That's crap. That's just hype. The fats you should be consuming are butter, ghee, heavy, half and half cream, eggs, coconut, avocado, MCT, palm extra virgin olive oil, lard, bacon fat, avocados, fish oils. I don't advocate for fish oil supplements. I do buy cod liver in a can, which also has the oil in it. So I purchased that. I don't trust the quality or the purity of these fish oils. They could be going rancid. Anything could be in there. I don't advocate for that. And keto foods to avoid. Okay, there are some fruits. If you notice here, there's a lot of berries, lemon, lime, stuff like that. A lot of berries and stuff like that. They have a lot of more fiber too. But there are some fruits that are like super, super like pure sugar. Those are don't eat these dry fruits and stuff like that. They're pure sugar candy. Don't drink fruit juices. That you may as well drink a Coca-Cola. Pineapples, oranges, grapes, bananas, apples, they're very high in sugar. So an apple isn't a high fiber. A banana isn't really high fiber as well. It's really just like tons of carbs, as well as the vegetables. Here's a list of the primarily the starchy, the yams, the squashes, the potatoes, the peas, the parsnips, corn, tomatoes. I'm fine with tomatoes, but a little bit of tomato in a meat sauce. Fats that will kill you, not only to avoid fats that will kill you: canola oil, corn oil, peanuts, safflower, sesame, soybean, sunflower, and obviously trans fats. We're going to have to avoid, all of these various grains. So that means pretty much, sorry, nothing in the middle, no Triscuits, no breads, no wraps, no rice, no fancy quinoa, no buckwheat, no brown bread really very often, none at all, none during the weight loss phase. And then the legumes, the beans, bada bean, bada bean. Okay, so the beans are basically tons of carbohydrates, okay, attached to protein with some omega-6 fats, some non-absorbable or something. Not much nutrients like vitamins, no fat-soluble vitamins. And most of these things, some of these things, you have to soak because they have cyanide. And okay, beans, that's survival food, okay? Because beans are poison unless you do certain things to them. Beans are a perfect example of defense mechanisms so that plants are protected. I will poison you if you eat me. Take a hike, dude. That's what beans are a perfect example of. Drinks: beer, cider, soft drinks, fruit juice, blah 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 blah. Look, nowadays they have they have those like seltzers. It's kind of like a sparkling water, but it has booze in it. And there's some that are malt, but there's a lot of them that are just like vodka in it or something like that. There's certain red wines that are very low, hard stuff like vodka. There's some alcohols that you can still get away with. Let's say, okay, I want to go out there and I'm doing keto. It's like I have some vodka with diet cranberry juice and stuff like that there. And what, you might get 40 grams during your whole night there. Come on. And we will end the stream with that. I wanted to talk about the timeline seen on fasting carbohydrates, right down to the 5th century BC. We just go through it all the steps of things that happen, throw in Ansel Keys like the counter truths that swayed the public wrong and stuff like that. That'll be for another time. Let's finish the stream now by going and seeing the comments and allowing maybe for the next 15 minutes somebody to come on and speak and chat about. The topic will be the ketogenic diet. This is the Monday stream. I know that I do all sorts of different whatever topics to try and keep this fun, but Monday we stick to the topic. All right, so stop screen share. Feels like it's cutting out. I hate that. Okay, anyways, screen share. So let me post an invite. Yeah, so the only streams that I promise to be consistent with are the Monday streams with our granddaughter now, living with us. And I have still 2 research publications at the hospital, one that I'm leading, one that I'm co-authoring with a physician that we're trying to get done because we want to publish and get this published in one of the medical journals. So I'm doing that. Just some finance, like I'm literally waiting for $25,000, all different things that just weird situations that occurred where like financial issues, and it's like I have the money, I just don't have access right now. So there's a lot of stuff, but primarily my granddaughter. Look, I work day shift, and on most days when I get home at 5, I stick my little pinky out and she grabs my finger, and that's my one-on-one time with her. She's 22 months old. Okay. And that's the most important thing right now for me to do. And then after, me and my wife will have maybe 2.5 hours when she goes to bed at 7:38, and we'll watch Netflix and fall asleep. That's pretty much what I'm living. There's a way more other, just, it's just weird, things happen. But I call this the last 3 years the Book of Job. That being said, is I am not going to be producing as much content. I might post a quick video that takes me 5 minutes and stuff like that. So, and maybe I will be able to pull out some next week. But the point is, if I'm less active, it's really because there's life situations now that demand way more priority. But so that's why the more topics that I'm just trying to the evolution and stuff like that, these questions, the flat earth thing that I was trying to, just any topic, just to make things more fun and stuff like that. Those actually take more research, like the whole intelligent design crap and stuff like that. I'm learning. I'm trying to make something that's kind of interesting. But that takes effort. And even veganism. I was invited by Reasonable Vegan to talk about the Dirty Dozen. Reasonable Vegan, he's a guy on YouTube. JD spoke with him, and he wants to talk about a video I did about the Dirty Dozen, which is the 12, I think mostly vegetables or fruits and vegetables, the 12 with the most contamination of pesticides and stuff like that. And the point that I was trying to make was, well, let's hypothetically look, and these the vegans win, and we do have a vegan society, no more animal food. So how are we going to protect all of this plant crops that are required to feed all the population? There's no alternative. Okay, you can't you do backyard stuff that you do for your garden. I'm organic. I put mothballs or something. I put Baileys. No, that's not going to work. It's always, there's no alternative now. It's synthetic fertilizers, right? That are mined horribly, non-renewable. They're finite resources. And if vegans get that, so already these plants, right, are monocrops. They need to be sprayed with all those chemicals. This is still depleting the soil. Now, if the vegans get this, there's no manure that's going to be put there, because that's, a lot of vegan community, they say that's organic is not good and stuff like that. So what I was trying to say is, look at the Dirty Dozen and imagine if we have to rely on all of these plant foods by big corporations because everything's centralized. Wow, that's disgusting. We'll have no idea what's the food is tainted with. And that was pretty much my video. He wants to just discuss that. So I want to do that, but obviously I have to relook at my video, and I have to go step by step and make sure that everything that's coming out of my mouth I can back, and to actually be honest, if there's certain things that were presupposition, or I was assuming things, stuff like that are wrong, I'll acknowledge it too. All right, here you go. So that's what I'm basically saying. I'm going to be doing pretty much a lot of keto content. This is the perfect time, guys, to hook me up. JJSWARTZ79@gmail.com. And, I made a Facebook group. So there's some coaching, and I do all that free. That's I'm proud. It makes me happy that I'm able to add, among other things, this to society, and I do it free because people should not have to pay to know how to eat and be healthy. If I change a mother or a father, their life, right? And then they're healthier and they're happier, and that makes a better life for their child, and that child's happier and he's better in society. Seriously, talk about butterfly, little acts of kindness, passing it on. It's not a top down, it's a grassroots that we're trying to do. Start making content. If you're doing this, start talking about it. Okay, it's word of mouth, just like the gospel was spread. The gospel was like, go out into all the corners of the earth and spread the information, right? That's pretty much what we're getting to. I did present, I did send an invite, guys. Like I said, I'm only going to do another 15 minutes and then we're off, right? Until I see somebody pop up in the back studio. I'm going to just start going through all of these comments because obviously I said it was a question and answer. Wow, you guys posted a lot of comments. So I'm looking for, sorry, I'm not going to go through all the comments there. If you have questions, if you have a statement that is important for me to see, to acknowledge, I used to say put red X's, emojis. That's fine. You can do that. I'll really see it. At the very least, if you don't want me to miss the comment as I'm scrolling, put it all in cap locks. Cap locks, and just I want to see it in cap locks. I'll know I have to deal with that comment. Just a shout out, amazing thanks. Like I said, Bruce sees all. Go see his live stream where he says talking with his brother. My brother has lost 44 pounds. I'll have him on. I don't want to start like, oh, he's just this much weight and this, but like let him enjoy coming on. Hopefully next week maybe, and we can talk about it. Bruce, my brother, he's on day 8 of fasting. Don't forget, Bruce, drink water when you're thirsty. Do not overdo the water because the overdoing the water will make you pee more and you lose your electrolytes, right? And not drinking water, okay, is dangerous to the point of you can die. Fasting, people have gone these dry fasters and stuff like that. Very dangerous, can put you in kidney failure. As well as, so drink appropriately. If you're going to be banging out insane fastings, I don't usually like vitamin supplements because the absorbability and stuff. But if you're going to do this for months on end, a lot of fasting, a little bit, which is completely fine. Take a multivitamin, do have some salt, do have some magnesium, and do have some potassium. I would say I'd be very, very comfortable if you would do that. Lemon water, get some vitamin C in there with lemon water during your fast. And again, I want to convince you, I don't know if I'm assuming, I want to make sure that you're confident that fat, if carbs are avoided, will not make you fat. And in fact, it is essential because you have to get fat-soluble vitamins, and fat-soluble vitamins are only found in animal fats. So when you are refeeding, you have to understand, Bruce, you've been coming from a processed food for a long time. You knew it. Not like you were confused. You knew what you were doing. Okay. Now you're like, time to go. I know you fasted the last time. So I know once you're like me, once you get in your head, it's done. So my only suggestion, and I'm not saying that maybe you're already doing that. I'm not making assumptions, but I'm saying this to you in case you don't know, and it's going to benefit other people. When you do eat, go heavy on the eggs, add some butter, and don't run after dry. Don't run after necessarily mean. Don't go after lean proteins and stuff like that. That one meal, have some cheese. You like cheese. There's no problem. You're eating cheese on your refeed day. So have some eggs, have some butter, have a nice freaking slice of cheese. I guarantee you, if you do that, eat that for 2 days and bang, you're off for another 5 days. It will not delay anything, Bruce. You're already almost there. I mean, what, you want to weigh 150 pounds? Like, you're 1 month and it's insane. You're already like half, like, what if you continue losing at this rate, you would have lost all the weight you need in about 2.5 months and be like, 200 pounds. Like, what the hell? All right. So what I'm saying is you need to lose the weight. You know how to do that. But you also, during this healing process, remember all the healing, the eyes and stuff like that, all of that you do though after that cleaning, you will benefit tremendously by not skimping on those refeeding days. You're renovating your body, you're rebuilding, you're changing your body composition, right? Because you're actually feeding your body protein, fat, and cholesterol, which is what it's made of. Do not skimp on that. You're renovating, you're rebuilding, okay, your body. So remember what I said during the fast, you're stripping the old crap out, you're ripping the carpets out, you're ripping the window. That's great because that shit is broken and old and due to be repaired and renovated. That crap is out. You're doing that perfect. Next thing, balance, keeping both systems in tandem. Don't go too far and skimp on the refeeding days. Are you going to succeed? Probably, because some people just fast the whole damn thing. But I'm saying take advantage of those refeedings because you'll lose weight, but you also replenish those vitamins that you might be low in, giving yourself protein because you are doing some push-ups. Like what do you think a decent cheese, chicken with the skin and eggs and beef, freaking like not trying to do it on purpose, but fuck that. I'm eating till I'm like, I'm satisfied. Do that for 2 days, dude. Man, it's like you just went to Renault Depot. Everything's stripped. And now you just bought the brand new windows, brand new doors, the hardwood floor. Boom, boom, boom. And then you stop eating, right? Because what happens after you buy the material? Are you going back to Renault and keep on anabolically adding? No. Now you actually still need to stop eating because now you just bought all of the stuff, everything stripped. Now you're fasted again, and now you're building. So this is the trick. Drink water. Don't overdrink water. Use salt, multivitamin if you're fasting to the degree Bruce is doing. I suggest mag sulfate, salt, okay, once in a while, especially if it's dizzy. I didn't say a spoonful, a pinch, okay? Watch out, summer's coming. So if you're sweating your balls off, okay, you're losing a lot of electrolytes, you're losing a lot of water. Probably not the best thing to be out in the sun, fasting, super active, a little bit of activity, but that's what I'm saying. I know, Bruce, you're doing push-ups and stuff like that. You're probably going to start walking or something a lot. You know those push-ups, you're putting a stimulus on your body saying, look, I'm demanding now this strength, and then you're going to build yourself, but you're not going to if you're still uncomfortable about having a very, very satisfying full meal with fat, with protein to satiety. Please, 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 if you're not doing that, please trust me, you will reap way more rewards because this is not only about weight loss. This is about weight loss. This is about healing. This is about rebuilding and re-nourishing. Everybody's scared, like no one's coming. All right, so I'm just gonna go through. Jimbo, yeah, said that Bruce is a rock star. Man, I'm super proud of you too. I'm telling like everybody. 1 month, exactly 44 pounds. Now, I saw the progress picture you sent to Mom, and just like I've known you all before when you had a lot of weight on you, especially here, your upper top and your chest are actually muscular. I can see that you have a lot of muscle under there. That's why you had a 1 month 44 pounds. You probably have, I mean, I know that you have strong legs. uh, I tend to naturally have broad shoulders and stuff like that. So all of that, I think that you can actually have a capacity to hold a crap ton of water. All right. And maybe there was also a lot of water retention that's not in the form of glycogen. It could be a lot of water retention from just inflammation and toxicity and just, just being full of the modern stuff that's poisoning us. Because 40, like, you can't be burning 40, you can't lose 44 pounds of fat in 30 days. That doesn't make sense. It can't. So we do know that a large part of it, I would think that you might have lost 20 pounds in a month, and you might have, it might be a 50-50. You might have 50% of the 44 might be actual 1 month weight loss, and the rest I bet you is water, and possibly water from inflammation, chronic inflammation and stuff like that. So heal and rebuild. Fast, refeed. Fast, refeed. Always important. Okay, or else you're not balanced. You're focusing on one. You'll still reap the benefits, but if you continue doing that fasting and still scared to eat that protein and fat animal food, then all of a sudden, if you're overdoing the fasting, now you're actually not reaping rewards. And what happens is people can end up a year very, very lean, but lost muscle mass. And that's not good, because holding more muscle is an expensive tissue, and that maintains your metabolism as well. Bruce, again, I'm using you, and I'm musing about these things. So I'm kind of talking to Bruce, but it's not really. I'm using Bruce to kind of stimulate dialogue for everyone to benefit. And I might be saying like, oh, if you're doing this, Bruce is like, all right, I know that. I'm not even doing that. Okay, well, somebody else might be doing it. So I'm using you as a prop for the benefit of the community. All right. Hello, Jason, Bruce, Darla, everyone listening in. Hey, Leah. Guggen Slayer, great stream. G Slayer is part of the cult. We can have him as well on here. He's been doing very well. I forget how much he lost, but he's doing very well on low carb or keto and the intermittent fasting and stuff like that. We got to get people that are doing this on the stream. I'm keeping myself up by the 2 chains attached to the ceiling. Wonderful. Can you post it on TikTok? You'll get views. Looks like I'm sitting. Wow, a Bible. Wow, Bruce, you quit smoking too. Oh, did you quit smoking? You don't smoke cigarettes. Well, that's freaking good. If you did, that's amazing. I wrote a book about fasting this week. It has 1 page. On the page, it says, stop eating. Gold. Bruce opened up like a clinic. It's $300 a month. First consultation. How old are you? Male? Oh, they then. All right. Okay, so looking at your specific situation, what I suggest, stop eating. Dr. Ken Berry, MD, helped me too. Yeah, so there was Ken, like you got Paul Saladino, you got Ken Berry, you had Sean Baker, he was more the carnivore. Ken Berry also has started more was probably keto, but went pretty quickly carnivore and stuff like that. JD and me had some discussions about these influencers. Sean Baker, for example. Sean Baker pushes feedlot beef. He doesn't even push the healthiest form of animal food. Ruminant animals is grazing, right? Grass-fed ruminant animals and stuff like that. But if I look and I say, okay, there's this really fat guy and he's pretty much sitting in front of the screen dying, and he falls on Sean Baker and he starts eating meat, only meat, and he gets healthy. I see that. I don't care if the guy is deceiving, he has some conflict, like he's being paid, I think, by certain industries and stuff to push, because he's a big influencer in a carnivore community and stuff like that. Do I think he has a net positive or a net negative? In my personal opinion, if a fat person listens to Sean Baker, it's better than not listening. If it sends them on a carnivore and keto-ish kind of eating animal food, net good. But deception is there, got to be acknowledged. That was a discussion. So I do agree with JD that there's some funky monkey going. There are some like Dr. Ken Berry. I'm not sure. I've never really listened to him, but I was aware of him. And I thought like, oh, it's really good. He's a family doctor and stuff. That's going to really help a lot of people. I don't know if he's gone off on certain, gone off the road and is preaching things that are wrong. Maybe, or somebody who says you don't need organ meat in the carnivore diet is somebody who's an extremist and stuff like that. That's not how our ancestors ate, and the animals. They prized the organ meats. Okay, so yeah, that's my thought. Personally, though, the majority of these people, I believe that some clueless person falls on these sites, it's a net positive. It at least gets them on the road, and most people eventually will start looking at a variety of people and make their decisions and stuff like that. But yeah, maybe JD next time we're doing a stream and he pops on, like we'll because he has been following and stuff like that. So Sean, I never really followed him. I never really followed any of these. I vaguely followed stuff. I did a lot of low carb down under. Anyways, who's George? Is that G Slayer's George? Or? Yes. So I think you made it work this time, Bruce. Yeah. It's because I am here, Jason, that things screw up. Yeah. Yes. Like Bruce says, I need repetition. And yes, that's what I needed. And sorry, there's going to be a lot of repetition. Don't forget that you might eventually be a regular viewer and a new person will pop up. So yeah, obviously they should go see my previous videos on it. But somebody's new, somebody asked a question that we've heard questioned a million times. You're going to hear a little monologue happen about that. Repetition is needed to remember for a lot of people, me included. Finishing cooking now. Pasture chicken wings, grass-fed ground beef, green beans, broccoli, parmesan, and pepper jack. Sounds amazing. Okay, so I'm assuming that George is G Slayer, I think, because I haven't seen a George handle. Craftsroy with standing up. I think eating can be an addiction. Yes, eating can be an addiction, but to be honest, I don't see how eating animal food can be addicting. A food addiction is mostly carbohydrate related. Glucose lights up dopamine receptors in the brain, the reward centers, and food companies know that. So yes, I would consider myself carbohydrate addicted. because I binge and my appetite becomes ravenous and I get fat easily on it, and it worsens my medical condition. It's just not good for me. So yeah, food addiction, definitely. But in my opinion right now, I'm saying, yeah, food addiction is only a possibility when we're dealing with carbohydrate in the equation. Um, Keto completely changed my hormone balance for the better. Yeah, because when you're eating cholesterol, fat, vitamin D, so cholesterol, fat, all of our hormones are fat. So your hormones will be optimized. And not only that, all your hormones are fat, but if your hormones are fat, but all of these fat components are omega-6 and they're oxidized and they're inflammatory, that's crap too. So you as well need to start introducing animal fats, but you have to really, as much as possible, concentrate on omega-3. Those omega-6s, don't worry, they're sneaking in everywhere. You don't have to look for the omega-6, but the omega-3 should be a focus. So the grass-fed, so grass-fed will have better nutrients and a lower omega-6 content and a higher omega-3. So grass-fed as well. I always want to support JD and his important message about stop making excuses, find the grass-fed food, find the farmers, look on, there's websites for this, and stop saying it's too expensive. 5 people can buy it, and you guys can have grass-fed, ethical beef that is supporting a struggling farmer that is getting strangled by all of these policies. Guggen, it's something magical. Now, do you notice, okay, the minute this happened to me, it was so drastic that I was running around like a crazy person trying to save everybody, like a newly converted Christian. I was like, okay, guys, no, it's not. And I don't know, it was driving me crazy. So I ended up starting to do this YouTube channel because I had to get it out. And that's why I'm so passionate about this that I would never charge money to help people. It's like almost a spiritual action that I'm doing from my heart, trying to let people know how to eat to be the strongest and healthier you can be, which will bring amazing, it'll add some love, you know what I mean? Because a sick parent is not the best parent, and a sick parent feeds a kid the food that made them sick, and they struggle, and we have a sick society, and that's dangerous. Okay, we'll go through. I got Charles Hill here, so I want to let him come on. And so give me a sec. I'm just Charles, don't go. I see you in the background. I can let you in if you don't mind. I'll continue reading some of the chat, but I'll let you in. Charles, how are you, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I can hear you very well.
Excellent.
You don't mind if I just run through the comments as fast as possible?
No, go ahead. Oh, I just really wanted to add like one point to your affordability thing.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I can do the comments later then.
Yeah. No, it'll just be real quick. So yeah, a lot of people assume that you see it all the time in comments on like Baker and Barry and Saladino's channels where people are like, this is too expensive. I can't afford to eat ribeye. I can't afford to eat all this high-end meat. And you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like a chuck steak or chuck roast are almost always on sale in a grocery store. And if you buy roasts or you buy large, like what they call primals or even subprimals, you can divvy that meat up into multiple steaks and multiple cuts of meat. And hamburger is always very affordable. Instead of buying the what do you see, the styrofoam bottomed with the plastic wrap over the top
Yeah.
hamburger, buy the tube hamburger. They're
Mhm.
basically identically the same.
Yeah.
If you get the fattier cuts of meat, they're usually on sale for a lot
Mhm.
cheaper. They're very
Yeah.
affordable, and there is really no excuse. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have a decent meal, a very hearty, decent meal of just hamburger, eggs, and bacon for
Yeah.
less than $10.
100%. Like, have you ever seen? I mean, obviously you don't need to because it shows that you know exactly. But have you ever seen like the videos? I made like maybe 2 videos, like carnivore diet for poor people, or you know stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Which I was kind of also proving the point. Now, mind you, this was like a early like that was store bought stuff. Like that was just from the grocery store. And stuff like that. And I've used the excuse that, you know, like, well, I can't get grass fed. I mean, to be honest, it's extremely hard, but it's not an excuse. And if I'm going to be pulling, like, I'm advocating because a carnivore diet this way causes less death than vegans, but if I'm not actually doing it, it makes me such a big douchebag.
yeah.
So I'm gonna have to get that. I was very, very organized, but like I was complaining and crying in my milk before. Like it's some situations have just occurred where it's things will resolve, but the finances there, it's
Yeah.
I'm doing like you said, like I'm looking at the grocery store. I'll frig a blade roast, just happens, grab 3 of those, and I'm doing a slow cooker. I'm eating that. See, it's cool because like if you're fat and you're going to do a lot of fasting. Like I calculated the year that I had lost my 40 to 50 pounds and stuff like that. I calculated, I forget, it was like 2.5 months out of the year, the
Oh
whole
wow.
year, 12 months. I calculate because, oh, 2 day fast here, 3 day fast, oh, 5 day, 2 day, 5 day, 2 day, 2 day, 3 day, all throughout, added it up. You realize that if I was a guy, I would have saved 2.5 months of groceries.
Oh
I
man,
made
yeah.
Yes. Okay. And like you said, organ meats is dirt cheap. Like it's just people don't eat that
Yeah,
anymore.
no, you can go to like in my local store, you can go to Fred Meyer's
Yeah.
and they sell like a tub. It's a small like container, but I mean I call it a tub, but you can buy a tub of chicken heart or
Yeah.
chicken liver for like
Yeah.
$3.
Yeah.
And you pan fry that up in some butter, maybe sprinkle in some ground pork rinds, and
Yeah.
you've got poppable snacks
Yeah.
filled with nutrition more than you can ever want to eat.
And you can like I'm a little hesitant on grocery um, food, but like I mean bone broth and stuff like that. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
keeping all your bones. I've read some stuff that like yeah, but you better make sure the animal is clean, or else you're actually sucking out also toxins.
Mm.
Maybe,
Yeah,
but
I mean, there's a potential there. I don't think it's a really serious risk for those
yeah,
kind of things, but yeah, and a lot of people like overlook like ethnic butcher shops. Like go to your local like Mexican butchery or your local
hmm
Chinese market. If you
yeah,
live in one of those kind of areas, they will have cuts of meat on sale
very true.
that mainstream grocery stores, like Americanized grocery stores,
Yeah,
just do not have. And
yeah,
you can get beef tongue or oxtail
yeah,
or you can get pig's feet. And I mean it if
yeah,
you're not used to eating that stuff, it can be a little shocking, but
yeah.
like you throw it in a crock pot, boil it for 24 hours, it turns out just
Yeah.
like any other meat. You never even
That's
notice
it
taste.
because the animal food is very expensive. It's not like the subsidized crap,
No,
but
you're
it's
not paying for it
it's
twice, which
so
is the
yeah. But
benefit. Like you're
compared
paying
to
for those vegetables twice because of
yeah,
taxes.
exactly. But like you don't need a lot of the animal food because it's
No.
especially if you're getting better quality, it's so nutrient dense compared to anything else. Like imagine like you have a salad. I see people they a salad and like one sliced egg kind of thing,
Oh my
and
God,
it's
it's
like you
miserable.
look all week how much just empty, non-nutritious, empty calories salads
Mhm.
and just nothing and with a few like things because they're scared of the animal food and stuff like that. There's no nutrients at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, like for me, it's like imagine if this is why it will never be pushed by mainstream and stuff like that. What would happen if everyone is eating out of the year 2.5 months not eating, not going to the shopping mall, eating, everything from the animal, and it. and not being hungry and being able to fast. And it's like, like if everyone did it, it'd literally be like half of the food consumption, and
Oh
stuff like
yeah,
that.
it definitely hit their bottom line right where they notice it. I mean, for
Yeah, like
sure.
this 2,000 calorie stuff there. I don't think I ever hit 2,000 calories. I'm
No, and I don't even think myself on carnivore. Like I probably barely hit 2,000. I mean, I'm a big guy, and I
okay.
mean, me trying to put away like 2 steaks a day is a
Yeah,
feat. But then some days I'll put away. Like last week, I was talking in the chat, like just some ground beef,
yeah.
bacon, runny egg on top. I did that, and it was like a pound of ground beef, half a pound of bacon, and 4 runny eggs on top with a little bit of sour cream, and I destroyed that. But then
Mhm.
again, I didn't eat for like almost 2 days later.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
like you don't need
exactly.
to.
That's why I was trying to encourage my brother, and say like dude, like you're not going to delay your weight loss.
No,
It's like on the
it'll happen.
it's like always think kind of like renovating.
Mhm.
I have to strip the shit, throw it out the house. I have to go and buy the new stuff. And if you're just, like I want him to optimize the rebuilding as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and you don't.
I hope he's convinced.
Yeah, and a lot of people have like a hard time, I think, getting into the fasting initially,
Yeah,
because they think, oh, I have to do 3 days, oh, I have to do 5 days or
yeah,
whatever.
you go.
Because they hear other people that are like, oh, I've been fasting and now I'm up to like 2 weeks or whatever. It's like, nah,
Mm,
just eat one meal a day, eat in the evening, eat in the morning, whatever like suits your schedule better to
yeah,
how you can get your nutrition in,
yeah,
and then when you feel hungry, prolong it just a little bit longer, and
yeah,
then you can eat like a couple
yeah,
hours after that.
yeah.
And that's like the
Completely
easiest way
agree.
to get into it.
Yeah. Bruce is smart, also agrees. He probably wrote this way before I just said it, but the
He
government
bounced a
would be
while ago.
mad if everyone started fasting, living for weeks on a dozen eggs. Haha, it's funny.
Yeah.
100% true.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing is that uh, once you get to your ideal body weight and you're lean, now it's even more cost effective because all of that fat, the white stuff. Let's say you do a blade roast, put water, some salt and
Hmm.
pepper, and 4 hours, and now it's kind of like bone broth too. You can even see the gelatin. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great. But there's all that, when it cold, it's not hot, it gets that white saturated fat layer that's on the top. Now if I'm in the weight loss mode, I'm probably not going to be eating much of it. But imagine a poor person that's nice and lean, buys a blade roast, puts the water, but eats all of that white saturated fat.
Hmm.
Man, that stuff, you can really survive.
Oh
We're
yeah.
being lied to.
Oh yeah.
And,
It's
and
gold. Like you eat that kind of stuff. I used to make homemade ramen. And you were mentioning at the very end of your stream here, you can't have sesame oil, you can't have peanut oil and stuff like that. And I was like, man, that sucks because that was like my go-to for my ramen. But when you make ramen out of a pork shoulder, like there's a lot of scum on top, and they recommend pulling the scum on top off of it. And I was like, that's not scum, that's fat. Like, why would I get rid of the best part of the soup?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's just asinine to me.
yeah. No, that's it. What was I say? Somebody said, "How old are you?" I don't know if Randall is asking Bruce or me, but that was like friggin' an hour and a half ago. I'm 43. How old are you? If I die, Bruce is funny. He's saying stuff like, uh, "I started freezing my water to be able to chew something." Okay. Imagine going decades without knowing how theories work until a dude in his 20s had to explain it to you, yet you want to argue against science and atheism. I'm not sure what that's about. Um, Argue against science. Science isn't above argumentation or criticism. Okay, so he was talking with you, Charles?
Well, he made a comment of, and it seemed like very dogmatic because he's like, "How dare you argue against science and atheism?" Kind of like that seemed like what the position was.
Oh,
I could be wrong
yeah,
on that, but
yeah.
when somebody says like you can't argue the science or you're a science denier, it's like that's not how science works. Science is
Mm,
always up for debate. It's always up for argumentation. It's always up for criticism. The moment you say it's not is when you're not practicing actual science. You're practicing dogma.
yeah.
And that's my point there. Argue against the science. Science isn't above argumentation or criticism. Like, it has to be challenged. If it can't be challenged, then it's not science, it's something else.
Well, like people say science, but there's scientism.
Yeah, it becomes a religion of science.
Like for me personally, like I'll use nutritional science to fit. Like I'll show a study when it benefits my side.
Oh yeah.
But I'm always telling them. That's why I always say, like, nutritional science, man, you cannot control all the variables. You can't lock people up for 40, 20 years, and you know exactly what each are doing. They're genetically similar. Like, you can't. There's cocaine. There's all sorts of things. So what they do, right, is associative studies. As you know, you seem very science literate and stuff like that.
Like epidemiology, where it's just nothing but surveys and questionnaires and stuff.
Yeah, but why can't they just look at nutrition and physical degeneration and go, oh, look, this guy, in the early 20th century, he went all over the place. These people, look, there's his research. These people are eating that. They seemed healthy. Oh, they weren't eating those things that we're eating. So it's like, hello.
And I brought that. I didn't bring that up, but I mean, to your point, like, you look at archaeological evidence or anthropological evidence, and you look at traditionally carnivore or heavy meat-based consumption populations like Mongolians, and on your point for fasting, like, they didn't eat anything because they would be traveling. When they were traveling to go to war, so when they were moving from one battlefield to the next, they didn't eat anything in between there because their rations would only last a couple of days. You're not going to survive very long off of some dried meat and some cheese, yak cheese. You're going to have to not eat for quite some time, and they would go like weeks between from one battlefield to the other, and their go-to during their fast for nutrient access to maintain their fast so that they didn't get, lightheaded, dizzy, depleted, tired, and all that stuff while riding on a horse every day, all day for weeks on end, was to bloodlet the horse and drink some of the horse blood. And then they would usually mix that with alcohol because they had fermented horse milk or yak milk.
Yeah.
And that's how they sustain themselves. But they're fasting. And then when they get to their location, they feast until they can't eat anymore, and then they go and
that's how
people.
It is. Yeah, that's exactly, like, that's how it would be. It's like you eat the hunt now, and stuff like that.
And you have these modern scientists, or not necessarily the scientists that are saying this, but these modern, like, propagandists telling you, like, oh, you have to ignore your own lying eyes when it comes to this very obvious anthropological data we have on these type of subjects.
Yeah. 100%. No, it if you look and you stand back and you kind of see the timeline and the switch, and you kind of get, like, you don't even need the all of it, but when you start seeing at the start, you're like, okay, everything's fine in the 1800s and stuff like that, fine in respect to old people don't have dementia and Alzheimer's, epidemics. Not everyone's diabetic. Not everyone's, like, seems to be getting cancer, heart attack. Like the modern, what we consider the modern diseases. Now, the fact that there was a time when it was called low fat meant that there was a change that occurred. That prior, it wasn't that it was high fat; it's just higher fat. So they did make a change. That's why so we know what we were eating. We were eating an omnivorous diet. Yes, there was some bread, potatoes, and stuff like that, but this was all homemade. You made one thing of bread. You did incorporate beans and rice and all sorts of stuff, and you threw a little bit of meat in there if you're poor. Like, it was an omnivorous diet, but there was table cream. Bacon and eggs used to be the staple diet, not freaking
uncured bacon, unsalted. Like, get back to that. Like, people need to get back to that. You were saying you don't think that nitrates are bad for you, and they're really kind of not like the devil that they're made out to be. I mean,
I'm like,
if you're eating tons of them every day, then that's probably not going to be good for you. But some cured nitrated bacon isn't going to kill you if you have it every now and then. But like you were saying, they were eating very whole, food, and they controlled what they put into it. They made a loaf of bread. The ingredient was,
Yeah.
the flour that they harvested from their own field, so they knew
Yeah.
exactly where it came from.
Flour breads and
Yeah, all those kind of things. The yeast that they gathered, the beer that they made from that yeast,
yeah.
and the pigs that there was a channel called, I think it's called, oh my God, it's like some medieval channel, and the guy does a bunch of like historical things. I think it's like moving history or tasting history or something like that. And he went into like, what did the medieval peasants eat during this time, and what did the royalty eat during that time, and how did the knights eat? And the peasants were eating basically exactly what you said. They were eating like, they had a loaf of bread throughout the day. They would have like
Yeah.
1 cup of beer in the afternoon, and then they would have bacon and eggs and like mutton or beef or whatever animal that they farmed. That's what their staple meat would be. And they would eat mostly meat, very little of that other stuff. And then they'd go out and crush it in the fields for 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, it's too much of a, it's not a coincidence. So it's like,
No, it's
okay,
not.
let's see how things shifted from that. Okay, where there's table cream, everybody was eating animal food. Yeah, they had side dishes, but they were local, and there was none of the middle section really, right? That didn't even
Mhm.
exist, the middle section in the freaking store and stuff like that. So like they were eating meats, fishes, milks, fruits, vegetables. Yeah, there was rice, beans, legumes, and there were grains and stuff like that, but it's nothing to compare now.
Oh no,
So
it's
all of a
definitely not.
sudden they figure out, hey, you know what the hell can we do with this cottonseed oil besides using it as an industrial lubricant? Why don't we just feed it to humans? Why don't we make a big marketing campaign and say that these fats are from vegetables and that they're made in a lab and they're clean and they're not diseased like animal fats and stuff like that? And they
Mhm.
made a Crisco cookbook, for all the mothers and stuff like that. That was a marketing and stuff like that. But the seed oils, right? They started about in 1930s, and they started, using this extraction process that is hexane solvent, pressure, heat, extracting the oils, deodorizing, making it look clear. It's easily oxidized. It's rancid. It's too much, omega-6. So
Mhm.
they started wanting to make money with that. Okay, so they were making a little bit of money with that, fine. But then after they're like, okay, look, we want to make money not only on these seed oils, we want to make money on all these subsidized cheap ass grains and corn and sugar cane and all
Mhm.
that. So what we could do is tell them that animal fat is bad and that fat is bad. So we're going to tell them that it's good to be low fat. And then we'll say that these seed oils are heart healthy. So don't eat any animal fat, reduce your fat a lot, because now that everything's low fat, everything's higher carb. So now we've excluded completely the animal food. We're making a crap ton with the seed oils, and we're making a crap ton with all of these subsidized grain. We know that this will make the population starving. They will eat more often. They will be
Mhm.
ravenous. This is great for the economy. It's too much of a coincidence.
Oh no, it's definitely. I don't
Right?
believe it's a coincidence at all. It's definitely a conspiracy. It's definitely a legitimate conspiracy.
Yeah.
And to your point again, you were saying like basically before the 1800s, everything was kind of like we were eating basically the way we should be eating, even though we had the agricultural revolution 20,000 years ago. People
Yeah.
still didn't use the foods that they grew in abundance on those fields for themselves. They used
Yeah.
it to feed the cattle that they would raise or the horses that they would raise for other purposes.
Yeah.
And I think like you were saying, like there is after that time, there's a bigger push because we become more connected as a society. Whatever power structures are in place around that time around the globe
Yeah.
that are coalescing, they gain more ability to influence and basically propagandize the public into
Yeah.
thinking like this is the way we should eat.
Mhm.
Because you see it the same way in like World War II. Like we got rid of a lot of like raw meat, rations, and we went to canned rations for the
Like
military.
spam or something.
Yeah, spam. Well, but I mean, spam isn't all that
Fermented
bad
meat.
compared to everything's, but it
Yeah.
it was it was more canned foods versus
Yeah.
actual like physical like raw meat rations. And then the same, you can see the same transition with dog food. We stopped feeding our dogs real meat and real
Yeah.
organs, and now we feed them processed kibble because we needed all of
Yeah.
that raw meat and organs for the soldiers. But then
Yeah.
all that stuff was canned, and we got rid of the organs, and they're just like, here's some meat,
Yeah.
protein, slop.
It's funny. A nurse that works at one point, and he was from, I think, Russia, and he goes, when I got here, he goes, I was so confused. He goes, all of your pets are so freaking fat. He goes, because he goes, in Russia, there's no dog food. He goes, they eat the scraps, like
Yeah,
we just feed them. He goes, they're all like lean, and stuff like that.
very lean.
He goes here, you're like, you're like, what is it? Oh, the vet said my dog needed a CPAP because it has
Oh, Jesus.
obstructed sleep apnea.
So
It's like,
I feed my dog. She's 13, and I feed her a diet of chicken soup, which is just a whole chicken that we slow cook for 24 hours, organs, giblets, and everything. And then we debone it, and we throw in 3 pounds of beef and mix it
okay,
in, and she gets that throughout the week. And we make that up every week. And she's
good.
13, and you wouldn't even notice it looking at her. Like, it's night and day difference.
Wow. Charles, just a question. Are like, how'd you find my channel? Are you from Bruce's channel and then you started coming and that's how you hooked? Or
No, so like I usually kind of just shadow around Garland Farms, and then I seen
yeah,
you commenting before on
yeah,
some of the things, and then I was like, oh, who's this guy that's always commenting? And I usually check
okay,
out people to see if they have channels,
yeah,
and just so I can find more information. And yeah, so I just kind of found you through Garland Farms. I think it was on one of the Crucible debates, and then I seen
yeah.
you
Well,
pop up more and more.
the yeah, because like I'm really enjoying the conversations that we're having, and if ever you want, like, how JD most of the time
Yeah,
he
yeah.
gets here, I pop him up. Like, you really seem to know your stuff. You seem pretty like a smart guy, and I'm looking at all the comments that you're making, and I think I like people who can bring something new to where I can, maybe there's some stuff that, oh wow, like I didn't know that. So you're perfectly welcome to become a regular to Papa. I like what you're saying. You have some smart stuff to say, so I just wanted to
Yeah,
throw
and
that.
I'm not going to say that I'm like this wealth of knowledge or anything, because everybody had to start somewhere
Yeah,
with their information, and I'm still like learning. I
me
mean, a
too.
lot of my stuff is like I hear what somebody says on the internet,
Yeah,
you or Garland or Baker, all
yeah,
the usuals plus some fringe guys, and then I just go out and I'm like, okay, well, I'll read a bunch of studies here, and I'll go look up a bunch of information over
yeah,
there, and
yeah.
try to draw my own conclusions. But for the
You
most
you've
part, a lot of
already
it's
you've read Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Is that like a book that
I don't really read, unfortunately, a lot of books. Like most of my book reading is related to like mythology
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. My
yeah,
nutrition stuff is more of like I just comb the internet for
yeah,
articles and information, and
yeah,
then I try to weigh that against what I used to know, and like try to dispel myself of any
yeah.
false notions that I held.
Well, I know one thing that, like, right now, what I want to do is I'm just gonna like it's keto as much as possible. I
For
mean,
sure, for sure. Yeah,
uh, with with fasting and stuff like that.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, and I'm bringing it way over to
uh,
carnivore, so
um,
that's totally cool.
carnivore too. I'm fine with carnivore because I think that I'm really comfortable with somebody losing weight with carnivore, especially if they want to initially while they're losing weight and they have ailments, autoimmune diseases, anything,
Mhm.
and they're like, God, at the same time as this weight loss, maybe I want to try and eliminate, do an elimination diet, see if along with the weight loss, some of my symptoms may improve and stuff like that. So a
Mhm.
lot of stuff with
Mhm.
spices that people don't realize, and it's like they have spices can really mess you up. Certain spices for certain people too,
Oh yeah,
nightshades
yeah.
for skin issues, and
Yeah,
So
I didn't know for like the longest time. Like I really loved eating just like raw celery, and I had no
yeah,
idea that for the longest time it was causing me to just get horrific sunburns, and so I had to cut that
yeah,
out. And I mean, I started I think doing a minor keto thing, and then I kind of
yeah,
just jumped full into carnivore myself because I noticed that I just had so many messed up problems that I can barely
yeah,
tolerate plants myself. But keto's great. Like I like to do a dirty keto every now and then. And dirty keto for me is like keto bread. So I can have bread, so I can have toast, or I can have a sandwich because I really like
yeah,
sandwiches. And that's
yeah,
about as far as I usually take the dirty
yeah.
aspect of it.
Like yeah, exactly. It's important that you said that because there's a nurse that started doing keto and she was doing it with her whole family and stuff. I think
Mhm.
maybe she should have just tried to do it herself first. But you know, obviously she was doing like all these recipes, you know, keto bread, like different, like
Yeah.
yeah, they're lower, but
Yeah, they're
and
lower, but at some point, like I
mm,
noticed that again, I'm not a thin guy by any means. I'm like 280 right now. But
mm,
I noticed that like the more you dive into that dirty side of keto, even though it's better than the alternative,
mm,
your weight loss like almost immediately stalls
yeah,
on that. And because it's basically all the same crap you used to be eating. There's just
no.
no nutritional value to it.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. I don't go for any of the keto high, and like I said, like even for me, like you said, like you're always learning and you know stuff like that. Even some of my older ones, when I've started relooking and stuff, and there's even some things that like they're not like completely wrong, but I'm just like I don't think that you know I'm different. Like I've changed my mind a bit on stuff like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Me especially like when it comes to keto, like I was doing like when I lost weight, it was like, okay, 20 grams. I was checking, I was calculating, I was trying to attain the fat that it said for me to attain. And then I started like going like, well, no, like that doesn't make sense. Like, why would I add more fat even if like I'm not hungry for it just to attain these macronutrients? No, no. So then I started saying, well, that is the maximum that I can eat, but I can always go under, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
I went that way. And now I'm at the point, it's like, I'm not even counting. It's like, eat this food, don't eat that. You'll eat days with more fat, days with less fat, days with more protein.
Hmm.
That's how we were. Like no one was doing, you know, calculating. I find it useful at the start to help people realize, look, you added that condiment. There's literally you just added 10 grams of sugar. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? Like it just helps them like reflect. It's kind of like doing
It's a
an
great, yeah, it's a
inventory,
great way to
AA.
conceptualize how much and what you are eating.
Yeah. And
Like,
within a week, you can do this for 14 days, and all of a sudden now you understand,
yeah,
you can gauge like how much is this, and you
yeah,
know,
you don't
so
need to do excessive tracking. That's a lot of
yeah,
nonsense. I think like once you realize like an egg is this much protein, this much fat, and it makes you feel this way, then you can have this much of it, and you don't need to weigh out everything. You don't need to
mhm,
count calories. You
yeah,
don't need to measure your macros and your micros.
exactly,
You're just like, well, I'm hungry for this right now, and I know that all I need to do is eat that, and
yeah,
you're good to go. And
yeah,
it's really intuitive
and
once you get into it.
because once there's a difference between hunger and craving, as you know,
For
right?
sure, yes.
And the cravings completely disrupt like what the body is saying. You know, it's like it's a drug to me. It reacts exactly like a drug. But once that's eliminated, then your body will tell you when it's hungry, and it will fluctuate. You know, I have no appetite, so I won't eat today. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's some appetite. Like most of the time it's a one meal a day if I do it.
Mhm.
But some days I might be hungry in the morning, so I'll eat in the morning. Like I'm not, it's like whatever, you know, like I'll eat whenever I'm hungry and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And a
Um,
lot of a good thing for people trying to get into that fasting thing, even OMAD, one meal a day.
yeah.
I tried that like straight off the bat, and it was agony. Like
Mhm,
just jumping in feet first, it was insanely hard for me to get onto that method of eating.
mhm,
The easiest way I found out is like if you start getting hungry, then you feel like your stomach start to rumble, or
uh,
you feel like that pang in your stomach, like I really
yeah,
need to eat.
yeah,
Um, then just put it off like an extra hour or two. And
yeah,
then the next time that happens, put it off an hour or two past what you just did. And
yeah.
it gets just a tiny bit easier. Baby steps. You don't need to just jump right into it.
Yeah. What do you think? I have a question. Like, I want to pick your brain about
Sure.
what I had said. That like JD is doesn't thinks that
Yeah,
Sean Baker is pushing grain fed and stuff like that. Uh,
I think that's
he
mostly
showed me
his.
some videos. It almost I do agree with that because don't forget, like JD is not only just trying to push a way of eating that is healthy. He's
Yeah, he's trying to do the
he's
environmentally
looking down the
sustainable
road
thing.
and
Yeah.
realizing that we're going to be screwed and we are not
Hmm.
supporting the grass fed,
Yeah.
and it is not true that grain actually does a little better. It is not true.
No, it's
Feeding
not. When
the
you
mix
actually look into it,
ratio
it's not.
is freaking not comparable.
Hmm.
You
No,
know,
I
but
agree with you.
yeah,
So,
so
but my
JD's always watching. So then JD sees another guy, and if that guy says organ meats aren't good or you don't, so now he's against that. And I agree with him because
yeah.
he's not like he's so. But and I acknowledge that. But my question is, and this is what I thought, but I'll ask you, even if let's say these people are pushing, they're getting paid behind and stuff like that, are they still, even if to a certain extent they might have some selfish intention or some deception, would you still consider it a net positive?
Yeah, I mean, I
I
would
do.
I would to a certain degree, and the reason is like I said in the comments, Baker may advocate for eating within your means, which I think is what his big thing is. I mean,
Yeah.
JD from Garland Farms may not agree with that, and he might think, well, you just have to eat grass fed, grass finished,
Well,
because
me and
otherwise
him
you're
had a
supporting.
conversation about that. I
Yeah,
had a conversation about that, and and he agreed because at start I was like, I was getting the impression too, like when I'm like JD thinks that if I meet somebody who's fat and sick and I try and help them with keto, that immediately I have to say, but you have to go find grass, and
yeah,
then I ask him like, no. Uh, so he goes, no. He goes, it's just that he's like, of course it's reasonable for somebody who's sick that's already eating the grocery store that the first thing is to get them away from the middle to the
mhm,
outer section. That's positive. But what he's
yeah,
trying to push is, well, if you want to advocate, not, like if you want to counter veganism and stuff like that, you should eventually, as you're fine tuning things, say, well, you know what, we really have to try and support. So that's like
yeah.
advocating. So like, yeah, he's not against, he's not I'm talking about JD. I don't think JD is being so extreme to say like, the minute you touch like any of those animal foods, it's not. But I think
No, I don't think he's
he is,
demonizing people like that. But it's,
no,
I mean, he is. I mean, I'll say he's pretty hardcore in his viewpoint on that. And I know I believe I'm banned on his channel because I used to get responses to his comments, and then now I don't. Even when I directly like inform, like, hey, like recently I commented on his channel that there is a coating that is being applied through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, called Aplee or Aplee or something like that. It's
okay,
APLEE, I believe is what it is, and it's an edible coating that's supposed to replace plastics on your fruit and vegetables, so that you don't have to put them in plastic bags.
what the hell?
Yeah, and it can't be washed off, and if you scrub it off, then it like actually damages the produce because it like gets into all the pores of the actual produce. And I heard about that on Red Ice, and I just commented it today, and I never expect anybody to respond instantly to stuff, but
Yeah.
I mean, even on something like that, you would think that he would say, "Oh, I'm well aware of that," or, "Oh, no, I haven't heard about that. Oh, I'll do something about that, later,"
Mhm.
kind of thing. But so when he was initially pushing against Sean Baker, because I know in the outset he was saying, Baker pushes grain fed. He's probably bought by some big grain
Yeah.
cattle company, and I may be paraphrasing. I may be getting his position wrong. So JD, if you're listening, forgive me. I'm
Yeah,
an
like I was actually waiting for a break to say like, because I know JD especially is very methodical about
Yeah,
his
no, he
wording.
definitely is.
and
Yeah.
he will hold
Yeah.
you
Hold your feet to
or
the
me to
fire.
account if
Oh yeah.
we're slightly off. So
Yeah.
like I
So
said, yeah,
but I know
like,
he was pretty against Sean Baker there early on because Baker was
yeah,
saying
I
like,
think he wouldn't
eat
deny
grain
that. Yeah,
fed. Yeah. He was saying, Baker advocates for grain fed over grass fed, grass finished. And I mean, that's a
yeah,
fair thing to have a criticism over. But I think when you're attacking people in your own community space, even though JD's kind of like community adjacent, he's doing his
yeah,
own thing, he's going his
yeah,
own way, and it's fine. I think you're kind of just, I don't think you're lending any kind of aid to the overall movement. And I don't necessarily think that Baker is anti vegan so much as he is pro health and pro helping people get healthy
yeah.
and doing
Like
so
one
within your
thing I do
means.
acknowledge for JD is he ended up, he did compilation,
Hmm.
you know, and it is like it is a catchphrase that it's not like at one point he was in an interview and he happened to say like I think it was it's like JD showed over and over that like he seems to slide that in every single
Yeah.
time.
No, I remember watching
In
that.
fact,
He
I think
does say that
Brain
quite
was a bit
often.
better. And
Yeah.
when he showed me, I was like, yeah, that's a little like why does he keep pushing? Because he could just say, like grass fed, grain fed, whatever you can afford. Like what? Why are
But
you?
he has said that. I mean, there are numerous instances where he's like, eat within your means. You don't have to have grass fed, grass finished. Eat what you're able to afford.
Yeah,
And I think that's his concern more than, even if that ends up him being pushing,
yeah,
um, a grain fed um, meat model,
yeah.
then I mean, so be it. But at least he's helping people get off of the veganism, off of the standard American diet, and pushing them in the at least general
Yeah.
direction we need people to go into.
Well, let's see, like that's where like exactly. Well, first of all, I have not ever followed Sean. I know all about these people, but
Mhm.
I I didn't need by the time like it was there, like I knew the stuff and I
Yeah.
stopped watching completely, and even I didn't do keto things for 2 years,
Mhm.
on the channel. So uh I can only know what JD brought up at that time. So I was like, well, no, yeah, it's very plausible about the him
Yeah.
being, because it would be normal, just like the vegans as well, to push like to be contacted and try and advocate for something because he's very influential. So it's for
Yeah.
sure that people are going to use that. But for me, it's like I don't know. I heard that and I'm like, yeah, that seems right to JD. But and then
Yeah. We can only, until we take a look at his finances, we can only speculate.
yeah, I see it
Yeah.
as a net positive. Like that's just my
Yeah.
personal opinion that we have sick people that are eating seed oils that are
Yeah.
freaking
For
like
sure.
diabetic and stuff like that. And anybody who is pushing animal nutrition and stuff like that, I think it's a net positive.
Yeah.
Even though I also do agree that I think the JD is right with certain things. I think that it should be called out if somebody's uh, not only saying like it's not essential, it's not necessary on a carnivore diet to eat organ meats. And I think what's the other guy? He always acts. He's a nutrition scientist, Bart K.
Yeah. Bart K.
JD, I guess, said something. I don't know if Barquet even said like you shouldn't eat organ meats or something. So, so I'm just getting everything from, I guess JD's, over the years was paying attention. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. So I'm, but like I said, I think my opinion is like, well, either way, people are, it's so deceiving what we're being told that, yeah, even if somebody is just saying like eat meat and stuff like that, you're better off.
Yeah. Well, and there's a trend line you can, or not a trend line, but there's a trend you can kind of observe in the comments on a lot of these carnivore channels. Like, how
Yeah.
often do you see a lot of people saying, "Oh, I prefer the taste of grain over grass,"
Yeah.
like in terms of their
Yeah.
meat?
Sean says that. Yeah.
Yeah, like Sean says, oh, I like the grain fed over the grass fed, and it's like then you look at his comments, and it's almost like 10-1. Everybody saying I like grass fed over the grain fed,
Yeah.
or people saying, well, I've never had grass fed until I had grass fed, and I
Yeah.
liked grain fed, and once I had the grass fed, it was like, oh no, I'm not going back to grain fed ever again.
Yeah.
So I don't see people moving in the other direction, moving from grass fed, grass finished to grain fed. I just don't see that
Yeah.
in the comments. But that's like, that's my personal observation.
Yeah.
I haven't tallied that up or done a
Yeah.
study on it or nothing. I'm just
So like
looking.
usually JD, because like definitely JD, I wish he was here so then we could
Oh yeah.
actually,
Oh man, he'd probably
again,
slam my head against the wall metaphorically.
yeah, I'm like, oh God, like he's gonna catch me on something. He's gonna
Oh yeah,
say,
he
you
will.
should. And I'm like, oh crap. I probably
He's
did.
great.
But
I love the content that he makes for all the anti-vegan, modern farming stuff. I love it. It's great. It's
yeah,
exactly what we need. He's real solid on that.
he's earned my respect. I take what he says very seriously.
Hmm.
I don't have exactly always the same, but yeah, like he's somebody that I will definitely take into consideration, and like I've learned a lot of stuff too.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
Just walking by the baby.
Oh,
I'm about to die. Mom's not here, right? She's here. Okay. You know what, Charles? I'm gonna get going actually
oh
because
yeah,
it's
not a
nine
problem, man.
o'clock and they just asked. I just got a text asking if I want to work tomorrow. So
No, no.
I'd like to have you on much more because like it's fun. We're all on the
Yeah.
same page, and you seem to really know a lot about it. So I think it'd be really beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and it
All
just,
right.
I mean, I just happened to catch your stream here at the last like 45 minutes or so, and I was like, oh, this will be good. So yeah, happy to hop on, and next time I catch you, I'll see if I can hop in.
All right. Cool. You're always
All right,
welcome. All
all right,
right.
man.
See you guys.
Take her easy.
All right. Bye. All right. So that's the end of the stream. I hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I'll see you next Monday for the next keto live stream. God bless.